Welcome. Thank you for joining the ClimateTech Entrepreneurship for Smart Cities event. It's a great honor to host amazing speakers today. I'm sure you're going to enjoy our agenda. I extend a warm welcome to our global audiences worldwide, as well as to our keynote speakers and our panel speakers. We have a very busy agenda, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy the wealth of information that we're going to be able to share today, as well as some of the insightful conversations we'll have during the virtual roundtables where we address key challenges as well as opportunities for climate tech entrepreneurship. Additionally, please note that after the symposium today, we will have also the scheduled demo section as well as the pitch competition. So the pitch competition, as some of you might be aware, will have the opportunity for the winner to gain access to our WBAF global fundraising stage in Durban, South Africa. So huge opportunity for all competitors. We're wishing them all great success. For now, welcome again to the symposium section. It's a privilege to welcome not only our keynote speakers and also our virtual panel speakers. A brief message to all of you. We aim for this event to not only be a symposium, but also a call to action. So it is our goal to share important information, but also engage you to reach out to us so that together we can continue the conversation and engage in action towards climate change and sustainable entrepreneurship that is net zero centric. We are currently at the intersection of disruptive deep tech innovation and digital transformation, both of which are powerful catalysts propelling us towards a climate neutral world. The nexus of disruptive deep tech innovation and digital transformation offers us unparalleled opportunities to combat climate change and redefine our relationship with the environment, but it also poses great risks if we don't deploy deep tech in a responsible way. So also during the conversations today, we will highlight very much not only the opportunities, but the key importance of having cyber ethics programs when we deploy deep tech to attain a net zero ecosystem. Our symposium is a testament to the global imperative of achieving net zero, and we also hope that our symposium will be not only the call to action that we mentioned, but also inspire everyone to engage in a net zero diplomacy, which is a critical pathway for us to attain the 2050 agenda. At the heart of this transformation is, of course, the entrepreneurship ecosystem, the innovators and pioneers of deep tech that constitute the heart of the entrepreneurship ecosystem. These visionary individuals and organizations are pushing the boundaries of what is possible. You will meet some of them today during the pitch competitions and during the demo section, as well as, of course, during the symposium this morning. But we encourage you to reach out and engage, as there are many more that couldn't attend today that are doing amazing work. We hope to see you also in Durban, South Africa, where we will continue the conversation and highlight opportunities we have when we collaborate, bringing together not only governments, academia, the entrepreneurship ecosystem, science and technology parks, incubators, accelerators, venture builders is essential to attain the 2050 agenda. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Bharat Dahiya. He's the director of the Research Center for Sustainable Development and Innovation at the School of Global Studies and member of the UN Habitat's International Advisory Board for World Cities. He has dedicated his lifetime career to smart urban development, most notable being his work for the World Bank, UN Habitat, specifically the United Nations Human Settlements Program, the Asian Development Bank work, and UNDP, where he initiated, led, and contributed to technical assistance and operational projects on sustainable urban development in a number of countries. At UN Habitat, he conceptualized and coordinated the United Nations inaugural report on the state of Asian cities. At the World Bank, he conducted the first ever systematic review of the bank's investments for improving urban livability that was published as a co-authored book, Urban Environment and Infrastructure Toward Livable Cities. That's how we met, because I was impressed by that book. He has written in international peer-reviewed journals and edited volumes, in addition to preparing policy, strategy, and project papers for the World Bank, United Nations, and numerous other organizations. He's also a member of the WBAF's World Smart City Economic Development Commission, and we thank you for being not only part of the board, but also assisting us throughout. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you very much for your very generous introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from Bangkok. First of all, I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk with all of you in this symposium on the emergent topic of climate tech entrepreneurship for smart, sustainable cities. I would like to focus my talk on three main ideas. First is about smart cities, second is on sustainability, and the third is about climate tech. First of all, we live in an urban world today. Cities produce over 80% of global GDP. They host over 56% of global population, which is expected to grow to 70% in the coming years. Historically, cities have been the centers of human creativity and cultural refinement. They lead the twin processes of innovation and technological advancement on one hand, and that of economic growth on the other. Today, we are also part of a digital age and ongoing fourth industrial revolution. Thanks to Steve Jobs and his competitors, many of us now use smartphones. As a result, human beings have become mobile data users and producers. This data reflects on our lifestyles, our work patterns, the resources we use, the way we travel, the things we eat, the places we visit, the people we are friends with, the things we talk about, the things we write, the monies we spend, and so forth and so on. Almost everything that we do is now converted into the binary data of ones and zeros. Thus, we have literally become a stakeholder in the ongoing global digital revolution. Even for an untrained eye, it may be difficult to ignore the fact that cities are at the center stage of the fourth industrial revolution. Smart cities are benefiting from innovations in artificial intelligence, blockchain, and quantum computing. A virtuous cycle seems to be emerging, wherein A, innovation fuels entrepreneurship, B, entrepreneurs drive innovation, and C, smart cities provide a conducive environment for both innovation and entrepreneurship. Within this context, it is now important to understand what smart cities are. In the manifesto for the Smart Cities Economic Development Commission, Ingrid and I defined smart cities, and I quote, "At its simplest level, a smart city is one that integrates forward-looking policy frameworks with cost-effective technology solutions to provide a better life for the greatest number of residents of that city," unquote. Following this definition, we find that some cities in advanced countries are leading the smart city movement. Some cities, especially in the emerging economies of G20, are gradually finding their way through the duality of traditional analog and the new digital dimensions. And some others in developing countries are still standing on the fence of the smart city ring, looking for promising entry points. We also find that the forward-looking policies and different levels of digital development offer varied levels of opportunities to governments, businesses, startups, and scale-ups, as well as communities to move forward toward becoming smart, sustainable cities. Second idea that I would like to focus is the challenges to climate change related to climate change and sustainability, and the imperative of achieving net zero. The UN Secretary General noted in COP27 meeting in Egypt last year that the world is on a way to climate hell. Temperatures are rising fast, rainy seasons are shifting, and storms are becoming more intense and frequent. Forest fires are ravaging multiple countries in Europe. Several cities are experiencing flooding even in arid and semi-arid climatic zones. The United Nations informs us that cities consume about 3/4 of global primary energy and produce over 60% of global greenhouse gas emissions. For such emissions, transportation and buildings are mainly responsible. Cities also produce over 70% of world's solid waste, and according to the World Health Organization, over 7 million people die in cities every year due to air pollution and respiratory diseases. UN Habitat, the UN Agency for Cities, reports that 1 billion people live in slums without safe drinking water and proper sanitation. These challenges are really daunting indeed for policymakers, entrepreneurs, and communities. All these changes, however, come with opportunities for innovation, technological advancement, and green growth, and the possibility of achieving social inclusion, environmental sustainability, and undertaking climate action. This brings me to the third point that I would like to address. Climate tech has emerged as a major area of investment. It deals with multiple activities of climate action, including climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable protection of water and marine resources, transition to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. In 2021, climate tech investment was accounted for over $60 billion. According to the latest estimates, more than 1/4 of all venture dollars are invested in climate tech. There are concerns if these investments will sustain in the coming years. And it is in this context that startups and scale-ups become important as they open new areas of economic growth in smart, sustainable cities. Smart cities host urban innovation systems that provide opportunities for startups and scale-ups to proactively contribute to climate action and thereby help cities to achieve their climate and sustainability targets. We at the World Cities, Smart Cities Economic Development Commission believe that a revolutionary approach is urgently needed to support entrepreneurs, especially startups and scale-ups that are aiming to work on climate action. Therefore, our commission is working on a new global index aimed at assessing the profound impact of startups and scale-ups, targeting multiple urban frontiers in smart, sustainable cities around the world. And it is in this context that this symposium on climate tech entrepreneurship for smart, sustainable cities is very timely and critical. I firmly believe that this symposium will provide a dynamic platform in discussing and developing creative ideas. Dr. Ingrid, I, and our colleagues at the World Smart Cities Economic Development Commission would be delighted to support such initiatives going forward. With this, I wish you engaging and productive discussions in the symposium. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dahia, for your contribution, and thank you for the wonderful books you've authored. I encourage everyone to check in on your books. They're a wealth of information and a lifelong expertise combined in those beautiful pages. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now it is a privilege to introduce our next keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Dominique Delporte-Vermeiren. She's the global chair of the Women Economic Forum's Humanity, Technology, and Innovation chapter, as well as a board member of WBAF's World Smart Cities Economic Development Commission. She is currently serving as president of Group Verdel, a boutique consultancy firm in corporate governance, sustainable growth strategies, and enterprise architecture design. She's a former corporate C-level executive of Dutch-listed companies and a previous owner of Delporte Management and Consultancy, an international consulting and interim management firm in BPR management and e-commerce. Over the years, she has built up a track record as a venture partner in several smart tech and food startups and scale-up funds. She is an internationally recognized academic and seasoned executive professor for strategic management, a social impact investor, consultant, board advisor, keynote speaker, and policy writer for various international organizations. Welcome, Professor. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ingrid. I'm honored to participate today. It's always difficult if you have such a brilliant keynote speaker before you, but I will try to give you some extra topics to consider. Climate tech entrepreneurship for smart, sustainable cities is a subject that is close to my heart. Let's start with recognizing the undeniable truth. July 2023 was one of the Earth's hottest months in hundreds, if not thousands of years, with persistent heat waves, extreme weather conditions, and devastating fires in the US as well in the south of Europe. I unfortunately had to live through this experience, and I saw literally how these events can put city managers under extreme stress because they are on the front line when such unfortunate events happen and when they are asked for preventions and solutions to mitigate risk for citizens. So climate change is no longer a distant threat. It is at our doorstep, and it urges us to take immediate action. At the same time, we see that cities are growing, as was well explained, at an unprecedented rate, and they are restrained in resources and infrastructure. But I want to give a glimpse of hope and optimism, since the conversion of technology and entrepreneurship can come up with a solution. As cities are the epicenter of human activity and often testbeds for innovation, they are also responsible for a significant proportion of carbon emission. And as urban population swells, we have to face this critical challenge. So how are we going to organize ourselves to create cities that are both technically advanced and remain environmentally responsible? This is where climate tech entrepreneurship can come into play. It is about harnessing the power of innovation to address climate-related challenges with fostering local economic growth and well-being for the urban citizens. Citizens can become smarter by leveraging technologies, clean technologies that enhance density, balanced, and green infrastructures that help reduce scarce resource consumptions as water, energy, or sustainable housing, technologies that can provide cleaner air and lesser carbon emission. But also climate tech can integrate seamlessly into this vision by offering solutions and technologies for geoengineering or climate engineering. Technologies that help to reduce the effects of heat waves, that increase solutions for active solar radiation management, that enhance reforestation in the urban landscape, sensor technologies that can be regulated actively, real time, to create a climate feeling that can be actively and locally in urban hotspots activated to create a breeze or even a water shower. So entrepreneurs, here is the big takeaway. Climate tech is not just about saving the planet. It is a massive business opportunity. And the global market, as was stipulated before, is growing exponentially. And luckily, we see that governments are pouring resources into these sustainability initiatives. When we take a look at the urban landscape when it comes to startups, we have seen some successful and inspiring stories already. For example, in France, we see some startups from companies like Dassault and Schneider Electronics, who were already capable by starting small, starting to influence an entire industry when it comes to autonomous electric vehicles, social power on innovative mobility solutions. And today we see, for example, in the French landscape already climate tech companies, about 69, who are growing scales ups with the potential of becoming the future unicorns. And that startup community is fostered and ranges from startups and scale-ups in green urban agriculture or organic food companies to companies that provide sensor technology for consumer climate tracking, cooling and water regulation, but also companies that offer shared economy services and products for the most vulnerable citizens. So, however, let's not sugarcoat it. It is a road to the road to sustainable entrepreneurship is paved with challenges. Access to funding and regulatory hurdles and restricted market competition remain formidable obstacles. But remember, overcoming challenges is what entrepreneurs do best. So to thrive in this climate tech entrepreneurship space, entrepreneurs need to focus on some key success factors. First of all, innovation. Constantly innovate to stay ahead of curve. Secondly, collaboration. Partner with governments, corporations, research centers, universities, but also consumer communities, and engage actively with policymakers to drive the change where necessary. Because governments and public sectors can provide incentives and regulations that can help you to foster your scale up, but only when they are known of your needs. The other factor is be ready to pivot if market dynamics change, and ensure that your business model is aligned with the planet's long-term health. Smart cities can move forward towards a more sustainable future by partnering up with climate tech ventures. When partnering up, they can create an open innovation ecosystem that goes beyond the boundaries of the single city resources. And well, when designed and well organized, they can leverage this collective intelligence of the city ecosystem and creating even more access to public and private funding through grants or equity investments, but also by providing through partner lead programs, knowledge and training for startup and scale-up entrepreneurs. They can also include dedicated support offices that can help networking and hot lead introduction, but also support a pool of experts for delivering financial, intellectual property, and legal support for the environmental and social impact regulations in the urban landscape. So in conclusion, climate tech entrepreneurship is not just an opportunity, it is imperative. And our cities must become smarter and more sustainable. And entrepreneurs can be the architects of this transformation. So embrace innovation, collaborate relentlessly, and remember that the challenges that we face today are the opportunities of tomorrow. I wish you a very interesting symposium.
Thank you, Professor. Insightful remarks so far. As we mentioned, we hope this to be a call to action. So both of you, Professor Daratahia and you, Professor Delport Vermeeren, have done an amazing job to encourage everyone to engage with us in this journey. And now please allow me to invite our first roundtable speakers. It's a privilege to introduce to you Mary Pagano, Tony Maroney, and Adam Imtiaz. Please allow me to share brief highlights of their bios. Like I did before, we can't share the breadth of everything that they accomplished in their careers, but just a few brief highlights. Mary Pagano is the CEO and founder of Hera Media Group. She's also a board advisor for Hera. She's an international partner for WBAF and a WBAF Miami board member. She's a board advisor at Femme Foundry and Women's Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and numerous other roles. She's a seasoned smart city expert with over 20 years experience working in the field of smart city technologies. Throughout her career, she has had the opportunity to work for renowned companies such as Motorola, AT&T, GE, making significant contributions to the development and implementation of innovative technology solutions. Mary's expertise lies in harnessing the power of technology to create sustainable and efficient urban environments. With a deep understanding of the challenges faced by modern cities, she has been at the forefront of developing groundbreaking solutions that address these issues head-on. Through her work, she has collaborated extensively with government agencies, urban planners, technology providers, and community stakeholders to create holistic and future-proof smart city strategies. She firmly believes in the power of partnerships and collaboration to drive innovation and meaningful change. Thank you, Mary, for joining us. We'll start our panel in a minute. And now please allow me to share brief highlights of Imtiaz Adams' bio. He's a strategy executive, MBA and data scientist, expertise in hybrid business strategy and AI analytics, with a focus on ROI of machine learning projects, applications of AI towards ESG investments and sustainability. He has extensive experience with climate change technology, carbon trading, and renewable energy financing, including solar, wind, and run-of-river hydro projects. He's an avid advocate for ESG investment and alignment between technology and ESG objectives. He's a true hybrid in marketing, financing, strategy with tech side, including AI and data science. He founded and built a global business from inception at Morgan Stanley, serving as global head and director for engineering, infrastructure financing, clean tech business with principal private equity, debt, including green bonds, legal, contractual, and regulatory and strategic advisory services. Welcome. And last but not least, the other speaker for our first panel is Tony Maroney. He's the founder and managing partner of Beta Digital, a specialist strategy and digital transformation advisory firm. He's also a co-founder of the Digital Transformation Lab, a think tank comprising of experts from industry, academia, and consulting. In addition, he's the program director for digital leadership at the Irish Management Institute and a lecturer on digital business and digital strategy for University College Dublin. Tony's career has spanned both industry and consulting, and he specializes in strategy, business model innovation, digital transformation, change management, and governance. He has worked with numerous clients across Ireland, UK, Europe, Middle East, USA, LATAM, and the Caribbean. He's a chartered fellow of both the Institute of Directors and the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Additionally, he's also a chartered banker, a fellow of the Institute of Bankers, and a graduate and fellow of the Marketing Institute of Ireland. Last but not least, he's also board member for our WBAF Smart City Economic Development Commission. Welcome.
Thank you.
Please allow me to start the first round of our discussion with the toughest issue, which is I would like you to share which one you think is the major challenge we have to overcome. We have plenty, as we highlighted, if we want to achieve net zero. But I would like each one of you to pick one that you think is the major one. Let's start with Mary, then Adam, then Tony.
Great. Thank you, Ingrid. I'm really loving this conversation, and you guys are going to have a hard time shutting me up. We are building a smart city for the future of humanity. I've been in smart city solutions before we had a name for it. So think about when the first cell phone came to play, right? So I had the opportunity to work with Mike Bloomberg in New York City to develop, mobile applications for citizens to do smart city work before we had a name, right? So, but this city that we're building, Harris City, it's a nonprofit, harriscity.org. We've got large sovereign funds to build this, and it's for all genders, religions, nationalities, and there'll be a strong theme in honor of women because we recognize Mother Earth and women all over the world are not necessarily represented in tech very well. They get less than 1% in funding, but yet they've got to practically started every nonprofit to address the SDGs. They're very passionate. I'm in New York City this week with the UN and Climate Week events, and it's amazing to witness these women rising up and trying to solve these big issues. So Harris City there's going to be multiple, but the first one will be in Morocco. And we're also going to have a studio to compete with Pinewood and Hollywood because we feel like the content in the world is not helping humanity. And the thing I think when we look at smart cities, we're also very focused on tech. And I've been doing tech for a long time. It does not solve everything. And as a matter of fact, sometimes people rebel against it. So we have to take a look at the human nature of things and how we operate. And Mother Nature is a great example of how when we build cities or when we adapt cities or we make changes to cities, that we look at nature to be the lead on it and not just tall buildings and concrete, because people are suffering because they need more nature in their world. So when I look at the obstacles, and let me tell you, deploying mission critical networks in countries and cities all over the world, it's a struggle, and it's definitely an enterprise, government, consumer collaboration. It has to be, because people don't like change. And you've seen some challenges around the world where they've deployed some smart cities, and sometimes the public's not engaged because they're concerned about, privacy and ethics. And so when I look at, interoperability and issue scalability and funding and, shareholder engagement, you have to go back to the human nature, right? To say, are the consumers going to engage? Are they going to make changes in their life? Because where they spend the money, right? I mean, if everybody is not buying an electric car, we're not going to get rid of this, fuel challenge that we have, right? So there has to start too with the people to make some basic changes in their lives, and not everybody, right? I mean, you look at 8 billion people on the planet, only 4 billion have a smartphone. So we have to address everyone and not just the few. But I can say that, interoperability is a big issue. You've got a lot of government folks that don't necessarily understand the technology. It can become overwhelming and a bit scary. And then you've got some, corporates and some companies that have some technology solutions that might solve half of it, right? And it may not be circular, and it could cause damage on the back end. And so I challenge all the investors as they're working with these startups, don't look at just the short term or the money you make in a year, look at the 10-year impact, because you know, this is what's caused quite a bit of danger for the world, is because everybody's had short vision thinking. I'll do it, we'll make a lot of money, we'll be gone, and somebody else will clean up the mess, right? So as humans, we have to put our egos aside. We need to collaborate, we need to come together, and then prioritize the most important things to address, whether we're trying to move an existing city because it's about ready to be flooded, or if we're trying to adapt urban areas today, or if we're creating new cities. We can't just think of innovation and technology. We have to think of humanity. So anyway,
your major challenge, if I heard you correctly, is we need to stay human-centric, and it's in close tie with interoperability challenges, if I have to extract out of all.
thank you. I'm just sorry I got long-winded.
Thank you. So, Tony, major challenge out of all the ones we're facing?
I think that one of the biggest challenges is, you know, helping business leaders and entrepreneurs to make sense of all this. Because the issue, as I see it, Ingrid, is that, you know, you got clean tech, you got green, you got sustainability, you got ESG, you got renewables, and people are getting very confused in terms of, well, what does this actually mean? And the danger is they start to see it as some sort of imposition on their business in terms of you must. And really what we need to do is, you know, help business leaders and entrepreneurs make sense of this, so that they're sort of saying, actually, this is good business. And to Mary's point, yeah, actually, it's the right thing to do. It's also human-centered, and it helps us to achieve things. Because otherwise the risk is that, you know, we see these things coming at us and they're going to be pigeonholed as, oh, that's something I need to do. But it's an add-on as opposed to central to how we think about the business. So I think the biggest challenge is, you know, helping business leaders, entrepreneurs make sense of the world that we're going into and help them navigate it.
Thank you, absolutely. And I see that on a daily basis as well. It's considered a lofty, visionary, aspirational framework instead of something that has to be embedded into daily operations. Adam, you've been at this also, like Mary, before everybody had a name for it. So
yeah,
share with us.
So as Imtiaz Adam, I'll just point out that I would agree with a fair amount of what's already been said. I differ a bit from Mary, to be honest, because whilst I agree with the human-centric thing, I think you can't do it without technology. We're just not going to make the impact. So I did my first renewable energy project in 1999, and I've created 2 global climate finance businesses, first one in 2003, and then after that 2005 onwards. And I've been doing this way before it was trendy, way before most people got into it. Right now, it's great to see the rapid expansion. When I was doing it, people didn't believe in it, and it was an uphill struggle, but I was involved with some of the early wind projects, some of the early solar projects, when people said they were not economically feasible. And I used to argue that if we got the technology to economies of scale, then we would undercut fossil fuel prices, and that's what's happened. And at the time, people just said I was crazy. And I go to the UN COPs and other events, the OECD, and make these talks, and people just say you're talking nonsense, that will never happen. And here we are today, it's happened. So I think it's, you know, yes, things need to be human-centric, but sometimes you can't just wait for popular opinion to come behind you. If Henry Ford, as he said, if he'd asked the consumer what they wanted, they'd have said a faster horse, not the car, right? So this is one of those areas which is so critical, where we have to show leadership, and we have to make the technology so good that it incentivizes people to switch. So coming back to Mary's point, you won't get the switching unless you get the technology good enough that it meets the consumer need. So scaling the charging infrastructure, getting to better battery technologies for electric vehicles, right? That are less polluting on the environment in themselves. For example, there's talk of going to iron batteries and other technologies, investing more into that, getting that into that, so that we can bring the culture over. Culture is the big problem, because a lot of people say, yeah, okay, we're into climate change, and you look at the young and they love Greta Thunberg, but then the first thing they want to do is, you know, get to McDonald's, get to their cheap flight, whatever, etc., by throwaway fashion. So it's about, culture is a big thing that needs to change. And coming to Tony's point, it is a case of trying to explain to executives and business how it not only is it the right thing to do, but actual fact, it can actually end up being profitable for them, because you can get efficiencies through reducing wastage, and you can find new technologies that generate efficiencies in their operations, which over time will actually lead to better results for them economically.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I don't know why I know your name is Imtiaz, but I jumped on it with a bit of a brief
That's all right.
moment.
That's
I
all right.
apologize. So now for the second round, I want us to hone in a little bit deeper on some of your areas of expertise. So Mary, you deal with numerous key stakeholders nonstop on a daily basis. Share with us, what's the toughest part to bring all key stakeholders together and find that point of alignment and getting things done?
Yeah, so for Harris City, we've been interviewing really cool tech, like how to take soil and turn it into sand, right? Hydroponic farming, how to eliminate the distribution of food so people can have fresh, organic, fruits and vegetables from the original seed, right? I mean, we all know that the food supply, at least in America, is a bit damaged. So, we have partners that are looking at giving everyone a digital ID, because women and children all over the world could go missing and you would never know it, right? And so we have technology partners that can, take the whole immigration policy and change it on its head and give people the flexibility to move around the world, which is what we need, because we've got immigrants and refugees all over. They're just in the wrong spot. I mean, we've got countries that it will pay people to come and live there to, to some of these rural villages that are empty. So it's a matter of moving resources around and finding those partners. And obviously, we're working with some really interesting partners that are looking at all the space technology that's being used in space or wasn't used, but can solve problems on Earth. And so we are looking for the latest and greatest tech, but we're also, what is the outcome of it, right? We're not looking at it from a short-term perspective. And it's really, listen, I did IoT. If you could take an IoT course at MIT, you'll see all the projects we did. So we were doing it even before cellular networks were up, right? So, and obviously we have the tools and the technology to do anything, absolutely anything. But we have to look at it from a collaboration between government, business, and the consumer, to the point that everybody is bought in, because we do these things in a silo. And sometimes, you're starting to see, even in the software environment with a mobile device, I mean, there's like 10,000 of them, right? And how do you choose the right one? We're really getting to the point of consolidation. We really need entrepreneurs to partner up. And I love the younger generation where they're actually thinking about philanthropy as one of the most important pieces. So, if you're going to make fast fashion, then you better figure out how you're going to clean up the mess on the back end. The whole circular thing is extremely important. We have to be responsible. And the thing is, too, is to remind that people have responsibility. If you don't complain about fossil fuels if you're driving a gas guzzling car, right? So we have to put a little responsibility on the individuals, and not every government and company is getting the funding. But let's go back to the VCs and say, do we really need another face filter app? I mean, is that really helping the health of our girls, of our kids, right? So, and this is why I think that there's a lot of great stuff going on, and we need to bring it together, and we need to get people to collaborate and put the egos to the side, and let's get the work done, because we're past the tipping point. Everybody knows that. So now we're in an emergency, 911. But let me tell you, we have it. We just got to unite humanity.
Thank you. Thank you. Tony, what would you say is one of the opportunity we have if we have to think about aligning the net zero quest with all other business and digital transformation initiatives? That's one area that, for instance, I hear from C-suite leaders that every day they tell me, well, you want me to do ethics, you want me to do cyber, you want me to do net zero, you want me to do DEI, which one should I focus on? So maybe you can share, you're an expert in combining all of these.
Yeah, and look, I totally agree with Mary Ann Intimus. I mean, part of the issue is, if we stand back from it, 80% of digital transformations have failed. And the reason they have failed is that, the focus has been on the digital as opposed to the transformation. And I see a big issue at the moment in that, people are still trying to do a lot of things, but they don't have that joined up thinking that Mary's talking about. So, if you're now implementing more technologies and imposing it on your people and imposing it on your business, instead of sort of looking at, well, actually, how are we transforming our business and I agree with Intimus, the technology is central to it. But how is that technology going to enable and accelerate our strategy so that we can achieve the ambition for the business and deliver on our net zero and everything else? And I think that piece is still missing, because what's happening in boardrooms and in executive teams is the focus gets onto a singular technology, and it's lost then, because that technology in its own right might be very good, but it actually is not transformative because the opportunity has been lost. And I think the big challenge now is to get organizations to sort of, let's join it all up. And when you bear in mind that, look, we're going to have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is going to make ESG, reporting mandatory. So why not join it all up and sort of say, actually, we are transforming, we are using digital technologies. Let me show you the metrics that's coming out of this, and let me show you how this is demonstrating to ourselves and to the world that we are actually making the right steps in terms of moving this organization to a place that's more sustainable, and it's in a net zero.
Absolutely. Thank you. And that's a perfect segue to Imtiaz's expertise, analytics and AI-driven business intelligence. So can you share how organizations, what tools do they have available to get a better understanding about how to apply this wonderful intelligence we can generate into their daily operations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Data allows us to measure and evaluate. It allows us to once you can evaluate something and know what its baseline is, it then allows you to benchmark your performance and where you can find the opportunities to make reductions where appropriate. So if Mary mentioned IoT, so the Internet of Things, I think over the next 2-3 years is going to be potentially transformative. We haven't actually got the infrastructure there really right to date to really scale it, not transformatively. And that's because things like standalone 5G, although 5G has been hyped heavily, standalone 5G is only starting to emerge. And it's that standalone 5G, which is really, a lot of our 5G right now is non-standalone, piggybacking on 4G networks, long LTE, 4G LTE. So when we get those standalone 5G networks, we're going to get that big device, machine rather, capacity, the ability to put huge amounts of IoT without and the network managing to cope with that at ultra fast speed. So I think over the next 2 years, we're going to see dramatic accelerations whereby you're going to get increasing amounts of internet connected devices all around us across our cities. But also the big thing that goes with that, Ingrid, on the data side is that over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see AI come away from the cloud servers where it's sitting today. When you use a mobile application, be it one of those face filtering ones that Mary mentioned, or whether it be LinkedIn or something different, or Uber or whatever it is they're using, typically the analytics is on all the data. It's retrieving everything from a remote cloud server that could be 200-300 miles away. The world we're going into, increasingly, the AI and the data analytics is going to be on the edge of the network, which is closer to where the data is generated and consumed. And that's going to lead to a world where you get near real-time responses, which you'll need for things like advanced autonomous robotics, drones, autonomous vehicles, robotic surgery, so on and so forth, and sensors that can act in respond in real time. But also, we're going to get towards then what I call mass hyper-personalization at scale. So we'll be able to personalize experiences all around our homes and cities, etc., with near real-time interactions in a way that we can't even imagine right now. And it is going to take a few years to get there, but 2 to 3 years over a business plan period is not a long time. And so I think there was a survey from the World Economic Forum earlier this year, which showed that 90 or 98%, anyway, it was over 90% of CEOs felt that within 3 years, their business plan would be redundant. So business models are going to be rebuilt and redeveloped. And even some startups will find that their products and offerings are redundant. This is the speed of change that's going to come. The disruptors might get disrupted themselves. But it's all about trying to make sense. And as Mary said, think of the long-term environment. Where do we want to be 5 to 10 years and react dynamically? As Tony said, the thinking of the transformative effects, what the opportunities and risks. And, like I said, as AI comes to the edge, we also have to work on new types of AI. So when you look at ChatGPT, for instance, and these huge large language models, I love them, they're great. But in terms of environment and ESG, they consume a lot of energy and have a carbon footprint. And you can't guarantee that it's all being fueled by renewable energy, including through the training. So the kind of techniques that I work on, that others are working on, which are known as like things like spiking neural networks, neuromorphic computing, ways to really compress models, neural compression, that is going to, you couldn't really put a GPT-4 or in the future 5 on your mobile device or sensors around the home, right? So if you're going to have this interactive AI, and interactive is the right word, around us, and that's going to personalize things, we need AI that's also going to have less energy consumption, that can work in an IoT environment, which is power constrained, which may have low power batteries, and that can therefore reduce carbon emissions, carbon footprint. And I think that is where we're going to go to over the next few years.
Absolutely. Great points. You read my mind. I actually wrote an article 2 months ago on business models that they need to be agile too. It's going to come out in Forbes next week. So I totally agree. And risk management has to change too, because we can't keep pushing all these things on one end, and then risk management tries to delay everything, and business models are not suitable. Absolutely. So the last round, I wanted us to focus, like you just mentioned, a little bit on the future. So what trends, out of all the trends we see now, which one do you think will be the winner? We see so many opportunities, but if you had to have a crystal ball based on your experience and expertise, which one do you think will be the dominant trend that will really change the paradigm for net zero and will become, like we had, you mentioned cars and internet, and what do you think is the tectonic shift that's going to make us have net zero adoption at larger scale? And we'll do the same thing, Mary, Tony, Imtiaz.
Gosh, I wish I had a crystal ball on this, Ingrid, because, this is way, way important, right? I mean, it's, people are living in very rough situations because of the climate. And they're scared, and they're looking for governments and companies to help them. So, and there is so much cool tech. I mean, but I do feel like that our priority here in the short term is to scale back the CO2 if we're gonna survive. And sometimes I feel like if everybody planted a tree and we had 8 billion trees, that would cool the planet down and help us a bit, right? I mean, there are things that we can do that don't cost a lot of money that could radically make some changes. But I'm a big believer in tech, but I just need to make sure that we're doing it ethically and with the right values, and that it's just not about, money and power, that it's about the future of humanity, and that we are going to save our civilization, because it could get very dangerous with AI if we don't have the ethics, and if we don't have the governance around some things, because power and greed can be pretty ugly. And I think to some extent, it's a little bit of why we are here today and even having this discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, look, I agree, Mary. I think one of the challenges, or one of the opportunities, is, clearly if we could get global agreement on all these things, it would be great. But I think what we're going to end up with is, there's going to be, high water marks set in different jurisdictions. And, the onus is going to be on, us collectively to push everyone towards the high water mark. But I also think we need to make it easy for businesses and entrepreneurs to get involved. So we need to look at, how we're going to finance all this, and how we can make access to finance and capital, much more easy to involve people. Because if it's just seen as, oh, it's a big cost and it would be lovely, but, right? So I think we need to rethink, and that means we're going to have to look at the incentives, but we're also going to have to look at disincentives, so that, we are actually providing the right impetus for firms to think about this and you will get the ones that want to do it, but you might have the firms that we need to encourage to do it. So I think it's going to be around, trying to set that high watermark, make it, reasonably easy for people to get finance to do the right things, and then encourage through a series of incentives and disincentives just to get people there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Imtiaz, what do you think is the...
Yeah, so look, let's be realistic about this, and let's put the hard options on the table. You have the more radical environmentalists who say we've got to deindustrialize and stop everything, not just AI, everything, and deindustrialize. Well, that's not going to happen. Our society will revolt. They won't accept that. They absolutely won't. Are we to go back to the dark ages before the Industrial Revolution, when women would have, 10, 11, 12 children, many people would die, children would die at very young ages, no proper healthcare, etc. That's not going to happen. The second option, let's freeze AI and technology and carry on business as usual. Well, the Industrial Revolution is the one thing that's put the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. If you accelerate that, climate change is only going to accelerate. So that's not an option. So deindustrialization won't be taken on. Reversing the clock, trying to freeze technology advancement, continue as it is, isn't an option. Are we going to? The world population right now is 8 billion. We're not going to, I think depopulation is not about an acceptable ethical option. You can't go around killing people. That's completely wrong morally. And a forecast, in actual fact, I love Mary's vision of planting more trees, but the unfortunate reality is that we're population forecast is what, 10, 11 billion by 2050, right? I can't remember exactly when, but we're going to 10 to 11 billion people, whether 2050 or the end of this century. And a lot of it in the developing world and in the emerging economies. So where climate change is going to have the biggest impact for them, unfortunately. So we're actually going to see more and more issues with resources, resource scarcity, and challenges and wars as you get water failures and crop failures. And that will lead to more mass migrations around the world, which is already causing tensions in the developed countries. This is nothing compared to what's going to happen in the future as climate change really takes impact. So for me, I understand Mary's point about effort, and I support that. And I think you know that, Tony and Ingrid, you'll know that yourself, that I'm a strong believer in standards and transparency and improving those things in governance. However, I think you do need alignment with profitability and green technologies. You do need an incentivization, because that comes back to your early point, Ingrid, apart from culture, and Tony's point on transformation. If you show that these pathways can actually lead to better economic outcomes, both at a societal level and indeed for companies and individuals, you're going to really scale this transition much quicker. And the more we adopt these technologies, the quicker they get these economies of scale, right? And the costs come down and they become more efficient. So that's really what we need to work together as society and as international collaborations. I think that has got to be the way.
Thank you so much. So for the last round, I wanted you each to share the one project that you're involved in that contributes to net zero. I know all of you are doing a lot of things. So we'll take the last round and then we conclude the virtual roundtable, like a call to action to what you need help with for your net zero project. So Mary, Tony, and then Imtiaz.
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, we're building a smart city for the future of humanity. So a lot of smart cities going on today, but we really want to make sure that the future of humanity is front and focus. It's about values. It's about ethics. It's about changing the culture in the world where people are kinder to themselves and to the planet. So I'm a big believer in tech. I've been in tech 35 years, and it's innovation is really important, but there's a right way to do it. And so we have to look at it from a perspective to, not only be profitable, but be, valuable and important for humanity. Otherwise, why are we doing it? Right. So Harris City, we're starting the first one in Morocco. We've got sovereign funds. We were hoping to break ground this year. We are going to build a studio because we obviously want to change the content in the world. We feel that the artists aren't paid properly. We're going to be changing business models on how we do things. And that's the important thing, because people need to get funded for important things. And we're also going to be about collaborating, bringing the right partners together to collaborate, from government, from companies, from consumers, because we feel that it's extremely important. We've got ambassadors all over the world that are saving wartime rape, human trafficking, food shortage. We've got so many different things that are going on all over the place. So if anybody wants to come and join us and be part of, Harris Cities, because there'll be more. And we are hoping that India will be the second one. So anyway, you could find us at harrimediagroup.com or harriscity.org. So love to have the innovators, the game changers, the people that care about humanity and the planet, because that's all we focus on is humanity and the planet. Thank you, Ingrid, for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for your contribution. We appreciate you also being part of the board. Thank you.
So firstly, I'd like to commend Mary on the work you're doing. It's fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you.
I suppose from my end, Ingrid, I have to say, of course, I'm involved in the World Smart Cities Economic Commission, so we'll put that up in lights. But in terms of clients, I'm working with two boards where they're trying to understand how to join all this up and make sense of it, so that it's not an and also, it's just an integral part of how they do their transformation. And then tangentially, I'm working with a lawyer who is trying to create a platform that will enable businesses to understand all their obligations so that it drives their training, their policies, their procedures, everything else. So there's a lot going on in this space, but I would say, look, the biggest challenge, back to my earlier point, is helping people make sense of it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Imtiaz, I know you're doing at least 2 projects that I know of, so please share with our audience.
102.
Thank you. So I think certainly building tools that facilitate ESG investment, environment, social, and governance, all 3 aspects. So although, of course, net carbon zero is a big one, however, keeping a balance with social and governance is also important. And a lot of companies suddenly forget in their ESG policies, they've neglected S&G. So that's one part. So we use develop AI tools with natural language processing, large language models that we seek to try and develop, put in more neural compression to make them more efficient, make them more transparent, building logical capabilities into them, and to help identify sentiment and classification of ESG and make sense of the data. But I'd say the big one that I'm working on is, as mentioned, to try and develop more advanced techniques on AI, on deep neural networks that can go to the next level, that can be more energy efficient, reduce carbon footprint, dynamically respond in real-time responses. So the challenge with AI right now in these the vast models is that you have to feed them vast amounts of data to learn from, and either you can do something called fine-tuning or transfer learning with smaller subsets of data. It's still based at the base level large amounts of data, which is in the hands of a few, and is one of the reasons AI hasn't really scaled a lot outside of social media and digital media, because getting those data sets and labeling them takes time. So if you can develop AI that can learn from smaller data sets, but also learn on the fly and respond dynamically, which is what you're going to need in smart cities, in real time, in real environments, where you have uncertainty, where whether it's an autonomous vehicle, a drone, or a sensor in a home or a factory, you can have unexpected events happening. And the AI system has to learn dynamically and respond accordingly. So that is the kind of techniques that I'm working on, but they would be much more energy efficient and reduce carbon footprint. The thing is, I'd say, the problem is when you look on social media in general and you see all these slick videos that show futuristic robots, and I love Boston Dynamics stuff, but Boston Dynamics cherry picking, right? They're taking loads and loads of shots before Atlas or whatever does that move. And because think about it, otherwise you'd have these robots all over the streets already. So we're not quite there on technology. We're not. We've got a long, this is embryonic right now. although we've got huge potential and we're moving quickly in AI, we're not at AGI. We're not on the verge of AGI. We're not on the verge of very advanced robotics being around us either. So the IoT is still really yet to happen at scale, but we can shape it. We can shape it in a way that we have benefit ESG, getting to efficient, help in the fight against climate change, but also the social and governance aspects. So I think part of that is what I'd like to do to help frame that up. But the big thing, like I said, is developing the next generation AI algorithms. And those, when you make them energy efficient and compressed and learn on dynamically, these are the things then that you can put in sensors around the homes, around the cities, etc., right across the edge of the network. They would have huge capabilities to transform our everyday lives beyond what we have today, which is really focused on digital media in our reality.
Thank you. That's why we call you a futurist, because I know you could go on forever and they're beautiful ideas, and I hope that they come to fruition. Thank you so much for all your contributions. For our audience that joined us late, we're about halfway through the symposium. We already had 2 keynotes, our opening keynote from Professor Bharat Dahiya, our keynote from Professor Dominique Delport-Vermeuren. Then we had now the roundtable with Mary Pagano, Imtiaz Adam, and Tony Maroney. And now please allow me to introduce our next keynote speaker. This is our 3rd keynote by Jacqueline Corbelli. Jacqueline Corbelli is a CEO and founder, as well as chairman of Brightline. Before Brightline, Jacqueline served as president of Aston Associates, the leading advisory firm for financial institutions and their investors. She also served as chairman at the board of Millennium Promise, overseeing the integrated economic development work that is the signature of macroeconomist Jeffrey Sachs' efforts across sub-Saharan Africa from 2005 to 2015. Jacqueline is extensively involved in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In 2019, she founded the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability, the leading international not-for-profit organization dedicated to accelerating the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. And in 2020, she created SustainChain, an ML-based technology and public utility platform purpose-built to rapidly rebuild industry supply chains. SustainChain is our alliance partner for this symposium today, and we really want to thank you and encourage all our participants to join. As you'll see, it's an amazing platform that can really accelerate all your efforts and amplify your mission and vision. Jacqueline also sits on the board of the SDG Center for Africa and is a leadership council for the United Sustainable Development Solutions Network. She's also a governor of the New York Academy of Sciences and plays a leading role for the Vatican as a founding member of Pope Francis' Ethics in Action Forum, created under the auspices of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. Jacqueline is joining us from New York, where, as we heard, we have Clean Tech Week. So we're excited to have you speak and deliver, as I know, an amazing keynote and share the vibe from New York. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Jacqueline Corbelli, a founder of the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability and the creator of SustainChain. This piece of technology is purpose-built to address the major impediments blocking our collective progress toward a sustainable future. And I couldn't be more excited to be having this conversation with you today. Listening to these wonderful conversations this morning reminds me of the value our solution can provide to all of you. As a technology entrepreneur and a mom of 3 daughters and staunch advocate of climate change, let me take a moment to share the impetus for creating such a technology. I've personally always believed we can be agents for implementing major change in the world and believe that there is a recognizable pattern to unlocking what's possible. I spent a little over 10 years engaging with global corporations in operational change management, where I began to build confidence in this idea that I could help lead on creating that type of change. Started my tech company Brightline directly after that, which was the beginning of what is now known as connected TV streaming. And about 15 years ago, deeply inspired by Professor Jeffrey Sachs' book, The End of Poverty, I turned my attention to global economic development and climate. Professor Sachs introduced me to something called the Millennium Villages Project back in 2005, an integrated economic development program he personally designed to address extreme poverty in sub-Saharan Africa. Then, after charging him at a podium of a lecture he was giving at my alma mater, Columbia University, and through a series of wild and fortunate events, I eventually found myself working alongside Jeff Sachs, leading the implementation of the Millennium Villages Project with him and ultimately on his behalf. Africa is an incredible place, stunningly rich in its uniqueness across the continent, with an incredibly complex set of issues. After disrupting 2 industries in the private sector, Africa was a real eye-opener, full of intricacy and revelation. I was hooked and hell-bent on understanding the challenges to creating sweeping change at a root level. And among other things I directly observed, I saw a major disconnect between what world leaders needed from the global private sector to accomplish in order for Africa to achieve economic growth and expansion across its regions. I became particularly focused on addressing that basic lack of clarity on how to actually do so. As someone who has been operating at the intersection of business, technology, and change management for decades, I came to rely greatly on a personal template for accelerating progress on market and business challenges. And I wanted to test that model, if you will, to help reshape the role of private sector in sustainable economic development. In 2019, with the help of some deeply committed leaders and partners, I formed the U.S. Coalition on Sustainability as a nonprofit to attack the gaps between corporate climate commitments and action, get businesses on a track to fundamentally rebuild their supply chains, and to unify, streamline, and scale their individual and collective actions at maximum speed. A little further context before we really dive in. Trillions of dollars, as we know, are spent on sustainable technologies, infrastructures, and processes required to rebuild industry supply chains. But these actions are deeply fragmented, they're disconnected, and they lack visibility to the actions of others. I know we agree that we're running out of time on climate change. We may disagree on how it happened or how fast it's progressing, but very few of us fundamentally deny it. And we're simply not moving fast enough to address it. Many words and genuine interest and intention that are unfortunately short on outcomes. All the work I've done, as varied as it may seem on the surface, comes down to studying the underlying systems that lie beneath a challenge. That's where the opportunities for lasting change lies. And for climate change, it does come down to business, supply chains, global value chains that feed the systems that we all live by, food, water, and energy, chief among them. The global pandemic laid bare for all of us just how critical well-functioning supply chains are to sustaining human life. As of that moment, we collectively became aware that seriously disrupted global supply chains can literally stop the flow of products and shut down whole markets. And we realized that our economy's ability to function truly hinges on whether robust supply chains are in place and working without serious blockage. And nowhere was that more true than where I'm sitting right now in New York City. And that shared experience highlights a basic truth. Addressing climate change will require well-functioning supply chains that are built in ways that make sustainability achievable and can be scaled in the ways city resilience requires. So I thought, what if businesses and other pivotal organizations of all sizes across industries committed to making their piece of the supply chain more sustainable, had visibility into the actions and products and solutions and partners within and across industries that connect with the imperatives of building sustainable cities? And what if the most advanced digital technology could be infused with artificial intelligence and machine learning to help them fuse their actions together in the quickest, cheapest ways and with the greatest impact and scale possible. Sustain Chain was built to specifically tackle this. Sustain Chain uses the latest in digital technology to unite the entrepreneurs, funders, and experts needed to create massive public-private partnerships and link those actions across focus areas: infrastructure, energy, transportation, construction supply chains, and natural ecosystems. Sustain Chain is an automated system for all the essential players to transparently source, implement, and scale sustainability solutions, and rapidly support one another in devising action plans to advance sustainability and resilience. The platform is a free and public utility that surfaces the most relevant services and sustainable solutions to achieve one another's priorities and outcomes. And it identifies the opportunities for integration, rapid scale, and finding the critical resources and funding needed. Now for the AI portion of our conversation. It's everywhere, isn't it? And it's a very exciting time for sure. Sustain Chain also guides users toward one another, toward collective actions and partnerships that can address the interconnected nature of solving these issues. Using a particular type of AI called reinforcement learning, Sustain Chain's AI engine called Da Vinci fosters a mass collaboration of action. It injects the data intelligence it generates to drive informed actions that can be done faster together. Thanks to ethical AI, Sustain Chain is constantly learning, allowing all the key stakeholders, engineers, technical infrastructure, governance, and community support required to create and implement the blueprints for change together. It does so by giving everyone live access to insights and information being generated by the actions being taken. It's an instant ability to connect the critical dots and crack, and crack through the impediments and other challenges. Over time, the continued rapid expansion and commitment to working in this way, because it's truly a behavioral change. The Sustain Chain platform is always dynamically learning from the simultaneous actions being taken, deepening the connections among and across them more and more, and guiding with greater precision the actions needed to rebuild supply chains. I like to say that responsible AI used in this way creates the promise and fresh pathway to faster, more informed, and practical action with immense potential that's literally hiding in plain sight. Sustain Chain is built to take full advantage of this breakthrough. In 2 years since Sustain Chain was launched, and just 1 year after the Da Vinci Discovery Engine was unveiled, this action platform for good has over 2,000 organizations, including the International Cities for Peace, and closer to home in the US, the largest state university system in the country, the State University of New York. Using Sustain Chain to convert their alignment with partners and fellow collaborators into connected action on their goals and commitments. And it's become the largest known community, public, private, and NGO change maker, unifying to specifically help each other vastly accelerate their progress on sustainability broadly and city planning and infrastructure specifically. And I and our team are incredible supporters, as I and our team and the incredible supporters of the US Coalition on Sustainability and Sustain Chain are humbled and inspired daily by what we're observing. A strong, rapidly growing embrace of Sustain Chain, as well as substantial expansion and growth in the activity occurring across a truly diverse group of stakeholders. Early successes like these are proof that where ethical AI can be used in practical ways and the public-private commitment is real, concerted action informed by the collective becomes possible, and to me, a pivotal source of hope. The world needs effective solutions aimed at climate change if we are realistically going to be able to set our sights on ensuring all people enjoy safe, nutritious, affordable food, water, and energy. But it won't be achieved without implementing smart, scalable innovation that's generated by the unified efforts of businesses, scientists, industrial communities, policymakers, and society at large. Thanks to an ability to put reinforcement learning AI to work in this way, we can now bring the systems thinking, the rapid data intelligence, and the human ingenuity together to create and execute a playbook for addressing the world's toughest challenge. And as I like to say, go faster, farther together to crack climate. And I invite you all to be a part of this change. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this inspirational keynote. And I would like to invite all of you not only to check the website, but also this afternoon, we have a pitch competition and a demo section where we'll feature a video where we're describing how you can join, how you can contribute and be part of this amazing movement. Thank you, Jackie, for joining us. I know it's a busy day, and Mary also, you're both in New York, so maybe you have a chance to connect.
Yes, nice to see you, Mary.
And now we're ready for our next virtual roundtable. Please allow me to introduce one of our first speakers for the virtual roundtable, Catalina Valentino. Are you able to unmute and share your video?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be speaking here with all of you today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Can you put the camera on?
Yes, absolutely. I'll play around with the settings in a moment.
Sure. Let me introduce you briefly while you make sure that your video is on. So please allow me to share that Catalina Valentino is also one of our latest WBAF members. She's the youngest in our whole global WBAF network so far. We're waiting for a challenger to join. She's the co-founder and CEO of Elixir Earth, who's also one of our strategic alliance partners for the demo section and pitch competition today. Additionally, she's an advisory board member for Una Terra Venture Capital Fund, a strategic advisor for the British Youth Council, and a visionary Gen Z multicultural female founder. Her achievements and contributions have had a transformative impact on the field of technology, sustainability, and entrepreneurship. At Elixir, she has created the world's first Industry 4.0 tech venture builder fund. And that is an ecosystem of 8 technology companies with ESG embedded at their roots, all meta-connected with the UNS Industry 4.0 to create smart cities. Elixir has plans to launch first of its kind, groundbreaking climate tech, LIDAR, digital twins, social decarbonization, sustainable finance, and help with policy and live data platforms. Again, thank you for joining us. And now I would like to also introduce our second speaker of this panel, Eve Logunova Parker. Welcome. Can you hear us? Excellent, very good, welcome. Let me briefly introduce a few of your bio highlights as well. Eve is the founder and CEO of Evenness, a company that operates based on the IDEAS framework, emphasizing inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility and sustainability to democratize Web3, generative AI, and extended reality. She is globally recognized as an entrepreneurial leader in frontier tech and a visionary professional dedicated to driving inclusive and sustainable innovation, circular economy, and enhancing digital capabilities for everyone. With over 15 years of experience working with multi-scale global businesses and their innovation labs, she has successfully sparked ESG compliant solutions for productivity and digital dexterity. She's earned recognition as one of the top 100 women of the future, like Catalina, and Mary's on her journey there as well. And she has been also mentioned in Know in America and one of the top 10 AI leaders to follow from Amsterdam. She's an executive consultant to businesses that wish to transition to a Web3 architecture and is working towards realizing her vision of InnoCityX, a generative AI-powered metaverse solution for innovators and creators. The reason why I wanted you both to be part of this panel, Eve and Catalina, is because we so far talked about a lot of challenges, opportunities, and about the pioneers that can bring future-ready solutions. I think both of you are founders and CEO of platforms that perfectly fit that type of solution. And so what I would like us to hone in on is not only the challenges that you face, but also how you're working to make that bold vision come to reality. What strategies can you also share with other entrepreneurs that are struggling to overcome some of those challenges? So let's start with the first round. Eve, if you can share the mission and vision of your company and what you see as the major challenge at this point. You're on mute.
Unmuted. Hello, everyone, and Dr. Ingrid, thank you for your question. The mission of Evenus is to unleash the potential of sustainable, inclusive, and accessible innovation for everyone. It is a big and powerful mission, and it sounds slightly heavy probably to one's ear, but we've been studying and researching for the last 2 years, understanding how people, especially after the pandemic, want to learn, want to earn a living, want to live their lives, and how businesses want to participate in the economy of things, supporting communities in their growth. Similar approach is to smart cities, municipalities, and governments to support their citizens in their growth and build the innovative, sustainable, and driven communities. So we've been seeing the trends that citizens and individuals, they want to grow. They want to increase their understanding of emerging technology. They want to get into tech or change their life to the better by having more sustainable community around them and conditions. And we've been putting our focus as a startup on solution that potentially has the power to bring this vision and our mission to life, which is a combination of artificial intelligence, Web3, and metaverse, where people come together, learn, earn a living, co-create, collaborate, and design the future in a more ESG, environmental social governance friendly way. I hope I answered your question.
Great. And also, if you can share what you think the major opportunities when you collaborate with colleagues around the world that are in the net zero ecosystem, and you try to explain how you see this collaboration. Share a little bit some of the things you hear from them and how you aim to overcome some of the resistance that we've seen. Earlier today in the panel, everybody shared how we see massive sometimes resistance to change, or organizations want to focus on other things and want to leave net zero last. So please share, because you're interacting through your platform with a lot of business leaders around the world.
Right. Indeed, the approach is global. So we've predominantly focusing right now on North America, EMEA, and Latin America, but this doesn't stop us from communication, collaboration, partnerships with different entities and authorities around the globe, from around the globe. So what we've seen is net zero is something that unites us together, but it's a very hard mission, I would say, because that requires behavior shift. It's not only about policies and regulations, it's actually about people rethinking their approach to things, to their wrongdoings, human errors, but put in effort. Like a lot of people in Europe, or like Netherlands is the leading country in this, where you do recycle yourself, you think about digital waste even, not to collect all these files on your computer or on internet and cloud. So this behavior shift is required in order for everyone and everything to move forward and progress. On our platform, we'll see the interest in not only analyzing the data or analyzing the next innovation that will help the world to be more commercially excellent and the progress to be more prominent, but it's about the way the things are built, the way the data is stored, the way the energy power is used. Analytics are key right now to measure everything, social impact, environmental impact. And the results seen from different partners coming together, startups, advisors, municipalities, brainstorming on how they can improve things, come up with some brilliant solutions that you won't even imagine happening, from programs to actual digital solution in the form of virtual reality, digital twin, or an app, decentralized or non-decentralized. So the more we have this innovation-driven approach, the more people would like to challenge the status quo, change their behavior, and participate in this collaborative marketplace of opportunities in co-creations. I think only then we can get as much as possible closer to reducing the emissions, improving the societal standards, norms, and be able to include everyone. Because what we sometimes forget, and quite often, is the accessibility factor. The technology needs to be accessible not only across devices, it needs to be accessible across health profiles. It needs to be welcoming, it needs to be guided and personalized, because there are just a few, a limited % of people who can use technology, internet, and be engaged in what we are discussing right now. The rest are still out of internet connection, and they need also to be part of this movement. Challenging, but if all of us set ourselves on this mission, I think we can achieve a progress within the next 10 years, 20 years, and more.
Thank you. Catalina, can you share with our audience, please, what your Elixir Venture Fund is doing, and also what you see as the major challenges in trying to help all the startups and partners you're working with?
Absolutely, yes. So thank you very much for having me. Yeah, with Elixir, we're really doing quite a lot. And as you described earlier, we've got a lot of different companies, from sustainable finance to planning technology, LiDAR technology, data, and all of these things really, they all amalgamate to create smarter and sustainable cities. So our main mission, we're making all of these companies individually very valuable, but what it actually ends up coming towards is the one mission that we have, which is planet.earth. And we plan for that to be a digital twin of the whole world, which will effectively be able to make every single city smarter. So that's what we're doing at the moment. And the challenges that we're finding, of course, there's always challenges everywhere, but of course, what our job is to find solutions. So I think that in the past, adoption of technologies like this has always been quite difficult. Especially, I'm not sure if you've heard of the local policy changes in the UK, but the government are scrapping quite a lot of green initiatives, which is really quite challenging for a lot of things that we're planning on and working with in order to facilitate this smart growth in clean tech. So it is challenging. There are so many different layers. Another thing that we're finding as well is data and privacy. So because of all of these huge organizations who have, of course, they gained the trust of their customers and then they lost that. And there's a lot of things around data and privacy, and customers are a little bit hesitant to put their data out there now. So because of that, a lot of the tools that we are creating, I think we might see a bit of a barrier towards that. But what we are doing is we're actually making sure that we're actually trying to store everything in one place through triple verification. So there are different securitization methods that we are working with various different providers with to sort of get over that hurdle. But those for us at the moment are two very big barriers that we are seeing, at least in our landscape, when we're trying to create all of these technologies to enable smart cities of tomorrow.
Thank you so much. And now back to Eve. Can you share, if a company would like to work with you, Eve, and leverage your platform for net zero, what do they need to do? So that, because most of the time I hear organizations saying they are interested, but what does it really entail, and what changes do they need to make in their daily operations in order to actually either deploy your platform or transition to Web3, because that's another domain that you work very commonly?
Thank you for the question. Why we're building? We're building to enable those organizations and businesses to not only implement more ESG practices, but also help growing the digital talent that all of us desperately need to support the innovation going forward. Those companies who work with us and businesses and organizations, we built our platform in it's called enterprise grade solution. So seamlessly integrating with the infrastructure that the companies have, organizations. That means following the strictest cybersecurity standards, ensuring the API, various integrations between the technology stacks. And that makes it easier for businesses and organizations to get connected with a solution that we're building, InnoCityX, which is a virtual immersive environment. You can call it metaverse, but take it in broader sense to an immersive marketplace of opportunities for innovation and co-creation and learning. And in this virtual domain, for example, businesses who are considering to be residents, they establish their ION, their digital presence with digital twins and solutions that they want to showcase. Consider this to be an innovation lab on a global level that is virtual. You don't need to travel to see innovations or just see pictures of them or websites. You actually can rotate, touch, click on things, learn from the innovations. So already the fact that you don't need to travel to that innovation lab reduces emissions. Metaverse itself, I was looking for the fact in my head, metaverse itself by 2050 in the United States alone can cut up to 10 gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So this is a strong contribution to making the world more sustainable and the digital world more sustainable. Then building solutions start from scratch, understanding the impact. Environmental, so if it's a data center, how the energy is consumed, how the performance is done, how rendering is achieved, in order to not only to say in the report, yes, we're greener than others, but actually to also enable the fact of accessibility, that the solution is lightweight and accessible across various markets with poor internet connectivity. The lighter you build it, the more interconnected it becomes. And better for the planet, because that's where you also contribute to the net zero agenda. With artificial intelligence, the way we apply it, it's for guided learning, personalization. So your employees or citizens or communities can come together and utilize the power of artificial intelligence-driven avatar that holds a conversation with you, ask you why you want to be in technology, why you want to be part of innovation curve, and helps you grow from point, let's say, 0 to point hero according to your interests and needs. A lot of our cases tied to sustainability, tied to eco-conscious and innovation in a social impact-driven way. That means that people are waking up from only focusing on financial returns. They also want to save the planet for future generations and make sure that human error is not transformable to the space as we are trying to get and plant and live in space in the future. So with this in mind, the technology that we are building is interoperable, the way we see it. And now having pilot customers, and if you're interested to join, please join us as pilot customer, because we're building around you your ecosystem for your performance and your social and environmental impact. But this is a new form of technology that is, we've been working with some municipalities and cities who recognize the potential of building virtual smart city that is scalable into the phygital operation of physical city. So that can be interconnected for citizens' feedback, innovation, prototyping, collaboration, partnerships, as well as education of current and future generations in terms of digital literacy. So yes, this is the solution we are building that is pretty disruptive. I would love to answer to all the questions in this regard, but also don't hesitate to reach out to me after the panel I can show also some part of the platform. And I think we have a demo in the virtual space here as well.
Yes, later on today during our event, when we share not only the demos, but also our pitch competition. And Catalina, now that we have you back on camera, that's awesome. I know you're joining us like Jacqueline and Mary from New York. A lot of the teams are in New York celebrating ClimateTech and having a lot of meetings. So we appreciate that you made some time in your busy schedule to share with our audience what Elixir is doing. In this section, like Eve just shared, if you can hone in a little bit on if companies want to be part of Elixir, what do they need to do? If they're already part of Elixir, how do you help them? Describe a little bit how you engage with everyone, because sometimes that's the question I'm asking when I share the beautiful work you're doing. What does it mean for a startup? What does it mean for a partner that wants to contribute to your venture fund?
Absolutely, brilliant question. So first and foremost, I mean, we have three different pillars to what Elixir is. We've got the main venture builder arm, which is what you described so eloquently. We have a foundation as well, and we have Elixir Labs. And what Elixir Labs aims to do is to resource startups which need help with either funding or actually what happens post-funding as well. And so we're actually looking to partner with some of the major banks around the UK as well. We've just got to formalize some of the details on those. But essentially, the best way that people can work with us is either if they need to approach us for funding on the Elixir Lab side of things, or perhaps if they want to use some of our wonderful resources. Because if you do actually look at anything that we put out, you know, it's very beautifully designed. We have a creative team around that, and everything's kind of Apple style, and it's just, yeah, we kind of take companies to market through the growth and innovation, and Elixir Labs actually supports the growth of our tech companies in Elixir, in the venture builder arm. So the best way that people can, you know, companies or individuals can work with us is either, you know, using SDG 17 of partnerships. That's one major way that we can all collaborate, whether that be to help us or for us to help you in some way. One of the things that I do a lot personally as well is make recommendations in my network. So just kind of helping everybody to grow. And I know that Dr. Ingrid, you do quite a lot of that yourself as well, always recommending me and other wonderful people in your network to all sorts of opportunities. So that's one major thing. But I guess the main way as well, we have a lot of startups ourselves who, you know, we're trying to look for the best investors possible. And, you know, becoming a part of the World Business Angel Investment Forum was a huge step for us as well. You know, having these sort of floodgates open to all of these wonderful individuals that are presenting us with not only opportunities, but investment opportunities as well. So to kind of long story short, I think that if you're a startup, you can work with us. If you're an investor, you can start with us and work with us. But actually, we're also looking for a global advisory board as well. So we have our main company is driven by millennials and Gen Z, which are obviously distinguished and have experience and of course that hands-on approach in their respective fields. So of course, we're not just kind of opening the floodgates to any young people who want to join. It's, you know, making sure we still make a sensible decision. But then we do also have what's quite controversial is actually we have a Gen X board, which advise the millennial Gen Z company. And so we're also looking for more advisors to join us on that as well. We have ethics covered at the moment, policy, net zero, and we're looking for the rest, I suppose, technology and all sorts of things like that. So those are the major ways that people can work with us.
Thank you. And now you gave me the perfect trigger for our third round of questions, where I want us to highlight a little bit the need for upskilling and reskilling. So the earlier part of the symposium this morning, we talked a lot about what governments can do, what governments have done, what they still need to do. We talked about enterprises, large enterprises that have a lot of power worldwide, what they need to do, must do, or don't want to do because they look for short-term results instead of long-term results. We talked about the need for global stakeholder partnerships. And we also talked about how certain generations are still resistant to change. Now, you both are the closest in our panel and in our network about understanding what Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, because millennials are already the third generation in line. But I would like you to comment a little bit because, again, World Economic Forum, all the World Bank reports highlight that Gen Alpha actually will be 27% of the workforce by 2030. That's very soon. And they seem to care a lot about SDGs. They care a lot about net zero, even the way they choose their clothing, the way they choose their entertainment, the way they choose their careers. So share a little bit, how important is the upskilling, reskilling, and the data-driven impact that you're both very close to? And let's start with Eve and then Catalina.
All right. That's a good question. And all the gens that are mixed together, I think we experience now generations that are about to kind of retire, happily retire, and say like, yay, no need to work anymore. And others who are rushing in to get this knowledge, to show themselves, to prove to the world that they can do great things and improve the operations in the world, make it better. What we've been witnessing at Evenness, because we democratize knowledge, we organize a lot of programs for sharing the knowledge about emerging technology and frontier technology on the side of our actually key focus to create infrastructure for businesses, governments, organizations that become our clients' partners, and building our own inner city X. So that part of knowledge democratization always gives me energy. It's like an energy booster to see people of different backgrounds, identities, generation-wise, like years of birth and so on, come together and be just open to knowledge, trying to understand where the world is going, how AI or Web3 or Internet of Things or quantum computing can actually create a different world in the future, depending on how you use that technology and what you build with it. And we are, for example, now we are launching our Inner Hub, which is generative AI-focused program powered by Qualcomm and in partnership with different communities like Women in AI, Women in Tech, and many others. And what we see that inclusivity and approach to democratization of knowledge across any entity, any market, any level, generation, but any level of involvement into societal kind of work and programs, you can see with this program quite a uniqueness, because everyone comes together to make sure that they can utilize technology and make the world a better place by just learning and trying and experimenting in the metaverse, because we use virtual space metaverse as an office, and people come from across the globe to learn about these new forms of technology. But most of them, or mostly all of them, focus on ESG, SDG goals. Every solution they're suggesting have some positive impact at the core of things. So my recommendation to all the businesses and startups and organizations out there, never underestimate the power of knowledge. That should be always continuous, and helping people to not only get to the next chapter in life, but also to get a ticket in life to a better future. Some can't afford education, some can't afford Ivy League schools, but by offering something to them, sharing with them, you can drastically improve their living. And that's what I want to share today.
Thank you. Catalina, I know you also talk a lot, have written a lot, and are very passionate about the upskilling and reskilling of the current generation and how they can contribute to the net zero economy. I heard some whispers you might even work on a book that can address some of these things. So maybe share with our audience today, how important is the upskilling and reskilling of the generations like that you mentioned, the millennials, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, the Gen Alphas that are knocking on the door for the net zero future?
Great question. I mean, I just have to say there are some really excellent talking points around here. Everybody's given some great responses. So just, wow. For me, I mean, it's not a question of whether it's necessary. It's more about what are we going to do about it? Because there's no question as to the impact that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are going to bring. They are the future of where we're going. And I say they, I'm actually Gen Z myself. But really, the main thing I think we need to be focusing on, partnerships is a big part of what sustainability is from that social side of things, but really organizations need to be looking at inclusivity. And we talk about gender equality and inclusivity. We talk about all sorts of different types of inclusivity, but what we're not actually seeing is generational collaboration. And that is one thing that we really do need to see going forward. We've got all of these people with a mountain of knowledge and Gen X and boomers, but we've really got these Gen Z and Gen Alphas who are kind of coming up, but they're not quite sure where to go. And, millennials have kind of led the way with some sort of progress, but then there needs to be that hand-me-down. I think that there's a bit of a barrier and resistance at the moment. I know that each generation has their own quirks, skills, attributes, and I think that there seems to be quite a lot of judgment when it comes to culture in the workplace, at least from my experience as a Gen Z I've encountered, having come across Gen Xers and boomers who in certain organizations were, looking down to me or talking down to me rather than trying to help me and collaborate. And I'm not speaking on behalf of every single Gen Z or on behalf of every single Gen X boomer, because I work with a multitude of incredible generations. So just certainly from my experience, I've encountered that. So what I do think we need to be doing is urging the generational collaboration, because ultimately that's the only way that we will get anywhere. We can do as much as we can and in this lifetime, but if we're not passing it down to any generation that's going to come afterwards, we're not able to then make that impact beyond that. So that's one thing for me. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with Elixir, and that's why we've structured it in such a way. We're making sure that Gen Z and millennials, they're being taught and trained. Millennials maybe perhaps a little bit more far gone, they've got more knowledge and experience now, but Gen Z, Gen Alpha are a big focus for us. So a big part of what we do is passing that down, which is why we have that global advisory board full with Gen Xers and boomers to pass it down to our millennial Gen Z board and hopefully Gen Alpha. So I think that that's one thing, but again, and these panels are great for driving thoughts and to talk about these conversations which need to be shed more light on. But we also need to raise the point of action and what are we actually doing to drive these things forward? Because it's all great to talk about these things, but if all of us, or even 90 or 50% of us could make one change, one step today, what would that be? It doesn't have to be a whole, let me just start this huge company and I've got to look up at this huge staircase. It's just one thing today. What can we actually do and take that away? So that's my little 2 cents for the day.
Thank you so much. And for the last round, I've asked all speakers during the first round table what their predictions are. What do you think is the technology that will cause a paradigm shift in net zero and will really help us attain the 2050 goals? And I know it's a hard question, but I'm trying to pin everybody down to pick one area. Eve first and then Catalin.
Oof, that's a really
but pick one and focus on why do you think it will be the winning technology?
I would actually package it all under Internet of Things. The way we interconnect different devices and apply analytics to measuring the impact of each and everyone and all together combined, I think that is the potential breakthrough. And IoT is linked heavily with artificial intelligence and everything else. Now, from my own shoes, I would say metaverse, because you stop traveling. You don't need to go to another business office to just see your colleague and wave your hand physically and drink that coffee. You can do it from the premises of your house virtually and make it more personal and interactive by just being as an avatar, kind of human persona. But this is still, it took us about 4 years to educate people about cloud computing. I was working with IBM on different innovations, so I kind of know exactly how long it takes to educate. With metaverse, we're still just in the beginning of journey. People do not see metaverse as it's just simply an interactive tool, Zoom, but where you can walk and do things. So once people understand that, then we talk about the power of minimizing the net zero and damage, because it allows the world to come together without creating the extra emissions. But I mentioned two, but I would say Internet of Things for understanding of what we're using so we can minimize it drastically and interconnect those devices, which is part of metaverse as well, Internet of Things and artificial intelligence for, in practice, minimize the traveling back and forth for no reason. And that's you actually can start the net zero adoption in easier way.
Thank you.
Catalina?
Gosh, I think I'm with you there, Eve. I don't quite know how to summarize this into just one point, but I will try. I guess, the easy way to go about this would be that the first thing would be, if we're looking at the tech side of things and development, there's high growth markets in that respect that are really falling into play. But if in a dream world, I will say, I will put this down to politics in a dream world. I'm not suggesting that this is necessarily possible, but if, as we're seeing certain trends going with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, well, more so Gen Z at this rate, who are getting more involved in politics and who are empowering others to have voices. And because of social media, we're seeing this huge transition of young people who actively care about problems that are going on in the world. Now, right now, that's not necessarily translating into votes. I know that getting young people to vote is very difficult, but I do think that with the democratization that we have, it's very difficult to implement all of these policies that are necessary. And I think I touched upon this earlier when I mentioned that at the moment, the UK, for example, the Prime Minister, the whole politics landscape, everybody has decided to now get rid of a lot of the green initiatives after very clearly careful consideration. And so, if we had more of an impact on the political landscape, I say we'd make more change there, because not only could they bring more change, but they've also implemented detrimental change onto our politics. So even if it's just a net, it doesn't have to be beyond net zero, but it can be kind of cancelling out all the bad things that they've done to kind of, I guess, change the green initiatives. So anyways, I'm rambling on there, but essentially I think that because of the trends that we're seeing with young people getting more actively involved, I think we could see a big shift over the next 5 to 10 years in the political landscape. And I mean, just from my experience on being on the Una Terra Venture Capital Advisory Board, I know that there are a lot of young people on that board as well. So, for example, there's somebody called Sophia, who's an activist. I think she's 21. She's actively going and speaking about these things and these topics. And you've got people like Greta and all these social influencers who are talking more actively on these subjects. And I think that not only does that open up a whole multitude of information that young people might not have had before. So previous generations might not really have thought, about all these green initiatives and even considered that they're a problem. But now, because we have so much access to information and technology and all of these people who are actually influencing our minds, and we're going, actually, hang on a second, why haven't I thought about this? And why am I not caring about that? And what can I do to change that? And so because of the sort of trends of Gen Z, and I'm hoping Gen Alpha will be the generation who will make that change. We've seen a shift with millennials who have kind of brought that change through to Gen Z. And I think Gen Alpha are the ones who are really going to make the impact, but Gen Z will be the big trigger point. And I myself, I'm planning to step into politics one day as well. So there's probably one leading party leader for any party in Britain left who has a female as their party leader, which is, to me, outstanding. I won't even touch upon that diversification in politics, but she's actually decided to mentor me. So I'm hoping that I can start some sort of a revolution as well. And I think that if we can all
Catalina, just to make sure for our audience that just chimes in, you're talking about a net zero revolution, not any other revolution. I just want to clarify.
Yes, no, absolutely. I think I might have potentially got sidetracked because I'm so passionate about this subject. But I think that politics plays a big role on net zero, massively. There's a lot of policy at play, and in the UK, we've had so many policies removed that were supposed to help us to transition to those net zero goals. So ultimately, just to summarize, I think I would put it down a lot to politics because they've had the biggest impact, I'd say, one of the biggest impacts in comparison to a lot of other things. And I think I think it's a wild stat, like 2% of global carbon emissions are only put down to private jets. So, everyone talks about how important it is for private jets to be banned and all sorts, but they only contribute to 2% of global emissions. So there are probably bigger impacts that we can have elsewhere. And that's just one example. So I do think that, just to summarize, is policy and politics plays a big role.
So just to maybe put it together, because the question was actually which technology caused.
Oh, which technology? Sorry.
But I think what's important for our audience to hear is that there is opportunity for tech diplomacy, and I'm a big advocate for that. And also net zero diplomacy. We have 13, 15 types of diplomacy, but none is focused only on net zero that could act as a coalescing factor. So if we take Eve's answer and your answer, it would get actually to the tech diplomacy mission and vision that we need to bring all these things together. And you're right, without policies, regulatory frameworks, appropriate ethics, and cyber interoperability standards too that help net zero, we're not going to be able to. And a little bit earlier this morning, we had our speakers in the panel also emphasize the need for impact metrics. So again, bringing all of this together for our audience that maybe joined late, we heard that it's important to have a human-centric approach to net zero. It's appropriate and important to have reskilling and upskilling and involve all the generations. That's another real crucial point. From an entrepreneurship perspective, you both shared the 1% and 2% of early adopters that are really pioneers and willing to accept modern technologies are contrasted by what we talked earlier this morning, which are the large enterprises who will not do much unless they're forced to and mandated. So we had the full spectrum shared, and we still have a few keynotes today that will highlight even more how we can focus on smart cities and not only net zero, but all other SDGs, which are also important, and how to harmonize our efforts. So thank you to both of you. We appreciate you joining us, and I'm looking forward to all of you collaborating. Please also don't forget this afternoon, we have a demo section and the pitch section where we have also a lot of entrepreneurs eager to hear what solutions are out there. Also, you heard earlier, Sustain Chain has a platform where we already have 2,000 companies that joined that are all interested in sustainability. So you can join as well. Thank you again, and we really appreciate your contribution.
Thank you for your invitation.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Great. And now I would like to invite Dr. Khulud Almani, if she's ready for a keynote. Dr. Khulud, if you can hear us, we are ready for you. If not, we'll proceed to the next. Okay. So what I wanted to share, then we'll wait for Dr. Khulud to join us. She'll be ready in a minute. I wanted to highlight for our audience what we shared in the opening remarks. The World Smart City Economic Development Commission has been working for the past 18 months to develop a new index that will be published within the next week or two. And the reason why we developed a new index that harmonizes smart city indicators and SDG indicators is because we've noticed that there is a tremendous need for entrepreneurs to be able to measure themselves, how they contribute to net zero and to other SDG indicators, and specifically how that contributes to a smart cities progress in a smart city index. As we know, there are numerous indexes out there and numerous innovation indicators that show how ready a city is, but none of them actually was able to bring together all the elements from a smart city, entrepreneurship, and innovation. So we're really excited about the work that all our board members did, and we're also eager to have you see our publication. It is also designed to function as a dual tool. On the one hand, our index will be able to be used by entrepreneurs to measure their impact on smart cities, but it can also be used by governments and platforms such as the ones we just heard about to decide whom to invest in, to decide which one out of all the abundance of startups that we have can actually help a city change not only the paradigm and improve the quality of life for their citizens, but also advance in the rank, because perhaps a startup can help them with 47 out of the 180 indicators. So once again, I would like to thank all our board of the Smart City Economic Development Commission, as well as the WBAF Global Science and Technology and Innovation Committee, and members of our WBAF Business School who worked on that index. And we're really excited for its publication very shortly in the next few days. In the meantime, I see Dr. Khulud Almani joined us. Welcome. It's a privilege to have you. Please allow me to share brief highlights from Dr. Khulud Almani's bio, who's illustrious, and if I would share all of it, it would take out all our remainder of our symposium. So Dr. Khulud Almani is the founder and CEO of HKB Tech. She's also a recent board member for our World Smart City Economic Development Commission. Ed is the founder of VTA Virtual Tech Accelerator in the UK. She established it for small and medium enterprises. She's also an investor in Forward Angel Investment with a group of investors from Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries. And they provide financial support, training, and partnership to support digital entrepreneurship and support youth and startups worldwide. She's a founding member of the Saudi Association for Engineering, Innovation, and Research, affiliated with King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology. Welcome. We're looking forward to your insightful remarks, and I'm looking forward to working closely with you on a lot of the exciting projects I know you're working on. Please, the floor is yours. You're on mute.
Okay. Thank you very much for this great introduction, Dr. Ingrid, and I'm very delighted to join today as a keynote speaker and to speak about one of the pressing topics today on the determinants of sustainable entrepreneurship towards sustainable development goals, which is really, we can see today in recent years, there has been a considerable amount of attention driven towards sustainable entrepreneurship. And actually, the reason is that more, sustainable concerns are becoming of great, significance for both governments and policymakers, because they're trying actually to plan their strategies and policies in relation to entrepreneurship, but specifically towards SDGs. They're actually considering entrepreneurship as an entrance point to start their more likely reforms towards sustainability. So the concept of sustainable entrepreneurship, many people are like questioning what is actually sustainable entrepreneurship and why should entrepreneurs specifically be involved in SDGs? Well, to start off, the clear answer is that, entrepreneurship in general is seen as the main driver for economic development, with the great contributions of, breakthrough innovations that really influence the growth of market economy and really requires us becoming, more competitive, remaining competitive in this market even after technological revolution. Now we can look at an entrepreneur to be, more likely to exploit those opportunities brought by change rather than causing the change itself. So on other hand, we can say, we have this, we have this notion of entrepreneurship. Now, if we move on to sustainability, the ultimate goal of sustainability is associated with, satisfying the national economy needs for national natural resources without compromising the needs of future generation, which is, this is actually in line with the United Nations 2030 Sustainability Plan. So combining these, two aspects together would bring us to the concept of sustainable entrepreneurship that will combine sustainability and entrepreneurship in a more innovative, market-oriented form of value creation. But the question is, how is this actually done? So this is actually done by deploying three major key elements, which are the environmentally, socially, and economically beneficial business opportunities, innovations, products, and services. So in other words, we can say that sustainable entrepreneurship involves, finding both creative and efficient solutions to address the most pressing challenges of today, which are like climate change, pollution, carbon emission, among many others. So in other words, we can say that sustainable entrepreneurship is the use of business to solve problems rather than to, related to environmental and social sustainability. Some people actually, look at sustainable entrepreneurship as a form of a business with cause, where, world problems are turned into business opportunities by deploying sustainability innovations. Now, the big question here is, the financial gains, because, as a consequence, the scope of a business actually really needs to be, or it's urged actually, to span even further than only focusing on financial gains. Why? It's really because actually ethically and socially aware behavior today is it's the more expected element today of business life, rather than only focusing, solely on financial gains. Now, to move on forward, we can say that the sustainability market, generally speaking, is really in its early stages, and it's more or less about being in the development phase in industrialized and developed nations. Whereas in developing nations, it's really considered to be in its still semi non-existent phase. But this market really presents not only uncertainties, but also opportunities for those who can recognize them. Now, in the context of sustainable entrepreneurs, they really focus on businesses from the major three key elements, which are, as I said previously, the environmental, social, and economic. And they try actually to engage them through their business strategies to be more competitive in the market. Now, there's a very important thing to highlight today, is that the idea of sustainable entrepreneurship is not really only confined to launching new sustainable firms. It also involves maintaining and modifying current existing ones to make them even more sustainable. And so in general, we can say that the notion of SE, or sustainable entrepreneurship, would really occur in three different types of businesses. It occurs in startups, SMEs, and also big businesses as well. Now, the big challenge when we speak about SE, or sustainable entrepreneurship, is that sustainable entrepreneurship is a very risk-taking activity. Since most sustainable activities are long-term, they have long-term scopes, and their return on investments may take some time. So we can see sustainable entrepreneurship to be in the land in between, for-profit and not-for-profit. It's actually between cash and cause. We can say it's like a purpose-driven activity, but yet there is a profit for purpose. So it's purpose-driven, but profit for purpose. So let's take this from an entrepreneurial perspective. They're facing two different types of two different factors: the pull factor and the push factors. Now, the driving force of those entrepreneurs would be exploiting the opportunities that they're trying to find, but again, they're trying as much as possible to avoid the risks associated with such activities. The question here is that the risks mainly are coming from investment perspective. Why? It's because most investors and venture capitalists are not really taking appropriate action towards sustainability. And this was really very much prevalent during COVID pandemic, where we saw many SDG startups outperforming more mature companies in the ESG space by around over even 20%. So, focusing on this space of sustainable entrepreneurship is a very important, area to be aware of. And this is actually in line with recent research, as one of the most recent published research studies has suggested that entrepreneurship significantly influences the sustainability development of any nation or any economy, and that all emerging countries have really taken great action to achieve SDGs And this has been done through promoting entrepreneurship and recognizing the potential benefits of their contributions to both the three different pillars of environmental, social, and economic development. Now, the big question here is how can we achieve these goals and what needs to be done to achieve these goals? Now, today, to achieve these goals, entrepreneurs in that space really need a stimulating and supporting ecosystem on both an institutional and governmental level to cover those two major challenges that they face. The two major challenges that they're facing are the perceived barriers and the perceived risks. Now, let's take this from an entrepreneurial perspective. What are the perceived barriers that they face? Actually, compared to regular entrepreneurs, sustainable entrepreneurs are more likely to perceive financial startup difficulties compared to regular ones. This is the first key challenge. Number two is that sustainable entrepreneurs, and compared to regular entrepreneurs, they're more likely to perceive administrative startup complexities. Thirdly, and most importantly, is that they lack the information on how to start a business in that space. Now, those are the key challenges or the key perceived barriers that they see. Yet, it's worth mentioning that sustainable entrepreneurs are more willing to take risks, and specifically taking risks in the financial area. But again, they have more fear of personal failure compared to normal or regular entrepreneurs. So in that context, I think that governments and policymakers must create an enabling environment for those types of entrepreneurs by removing barriers, supporting collaboration and partnerships, and allowing them to access financial resources, and also reducing, entry regulations and costs for such entrepreneurs. This is from one perspective. Another perspective, an important perspective, is that entrepreneurial capabilities need to be developed as rapidly and as consistently with, the fast changes that are occurring in the space. And it's in that regard, I think that educational programs should provide, sustainability-oriented teaching in like business courses and management courses, to upgrade their skills and move them forward in the right direction. Now, to sum up, there is no doubt that sustainable entrepreneurship is based on the notion that environmentally friendly products will yield a competitive advantage and financial gains, both individually and collectively. And so to do that, governments need to pay great attention to the potential benefits of sustainable entrepreneurship and try to encourage them and try to relax all the barriers that could be facing them in order to allow them to contribute, to economic and social development in the country. Thank you very much, and I hope that I have added something to this speech. And I would like to hand over to my upcoming colleagues, and we look forward to for this great pitch coming soon.
Thank you so much for your great keynote. And yes, we have a demo section and pitch competition this afternoon. We know all the companies are eager to participate, and we're looking forward to collaborating with you as well. And now please allow me to introduce our next keynote speaker, Miguel Martin. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. He's WBAF High Commissioner of Spain, founder of the Hispan-Arabic Partnership, founding curator of Seville's Global Shapers Hub by World Economic Forum. He has 25+ years experience in international business, fundraising, investing, and connecting global markets. He's a startup investor himself, mentor, board advisor, globally sought after speaker. He's been a jury member for countless events worldwide, and we're very lucky to have him today deliver a keynote for us. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Dr. Ingrid. It's a pleasure to have your friendship and collaborate with you for so many years in the World Business Angel Forum. So this is an amazing opportunity for to share my expertise and network with all these amazing fellow speakers. And by the way, I was impressed, and I think it's the first time in this year that I am participating in an event that is on schedule and on time. Normally, it's not the case. So I will try to maximize to keep the same rule and to finish on time and to maximize the time than I have. So I'm going to try to do a little bit different from the previous comments, because I'm not so technical and I'm not so expert on the, how to say, on the, I'm more horizontal startup expert. So my knowledge of ClimateTech is because I have been collaborating with different initiatives. So a little, just a short introduction about myself. I am international business, and I have been working more than 25 years, last 10 years in innovation entrepreneurship and in startup investment. And I have specialized myself in connecting the Spanish ecosystem with global initiatives. As you were commenting, I have the honor of being representing World Business Angel Forum for the last 7 years here in Spain. For the last 5 years, I founded the Startup Grime chapter in Malaga, in Andalusia. Later, I have been leading the Entrepreneurship World Cup, which is an initiative from Global Entrepreneurship Network here in Spain for the last 3 years, getting a couple of awards like the best international partner. And the last year, I launched the first Global Shaper Hub in the South Spain, in Andalusia, for the World Economic Forum. So that in reality, this is like playing the same sport, but in different, with different rules. In all of them, at the end of the day, what I'm doing is building communities, connecting startups, curating the best startups in the local, regional and national ecosystem, and identifying and scouting the same startups internationally for connecting with investors in Spain and abroad. My last, a more personal initiative is a Hispano-Arabic Hub. Hispano-Arabic Hub is a bridge connecting the Arab global ecosystem and the Spanish global ecosystem. So basically connecting Latin America and the US Hispanic community to the Arab global region in the MENA and Gulf, using Spain like the meeting point for these two global ecosystem. For this year, I have been speaking in 5 events in the Gulf. I will be in 2 weeks again invited for GTEx and GTEC Impact as an investor and a speaker. And hopefully I will be visiting Dr. Claude Almani in Riyadh for the 3rd time this year, before the end and before Christmas. So starting with the content of this event, what I have identified is different initiatives that I have been involved in ClimateTech. Just for, and by the way, anyone that want to contact me can contact me on LinkedIn, and I will be more than happy to share a few list curations that I have done of the best, well, the best maybe, or in my opinion, some of the most relevant acceleration programs, events, investors, and initiatives in the ClimateTech and smart cities field. From my personal perspective, I can, for example, I have been mentoring for 2 United Nations programs. One is the United Nations Sustainable Development Solution Network Investment Readiness Program. Then, by the way, the demo day is tomorrow. So I have been mentoring a startup from Middle East, Africa, and Latin America for this program. And my personal experience is that saying one thing positive and one thing that could be improved. The first thing positive is that really you can see amazing startups trying to change the world for the better, targeting SDGs and trying to develop new models for investable readiness. But the selection of the startups should be improved, because sometimes the level of the, how to say, entrepreneurs is not doesn't have the minimum for really how to say, to grow the startup to a global level. Or maybe they should be two different programs, one for the, how to say, for motivating like a pre-incubation and later an acceleration program. On the contrary, yesterday and this week has been a quite busy one. I was also participating in the UNDP Women Innovation Program for the Arab region. I have been mentoring in this program for the last 3 editions, and also like an investor. And I can say that for my personal experience, this is one of the best programs that I have been. The startups that I have been able to identify in places like Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, which they are suffering very harsh, how to say, climate situations, refugees because of war or political instability. Is incredible what they are doing. Some of the startups are targeting the climate tech and system and also the smart city field, but it's a generalistic program. I think there is someone with the micro. Okay, and so that is a personally, if any startup is listening to me, this is a program that I fully recommend, in case that they can apply, because they are in the MENA region and they have a woman founder or is a female lead startup. Another program that I have been also mentoring is Rockstar Europe ClimateTech program in collaboration with the Green for Growth Fund. This is a corporate innovation program managed by Rockstar. I was mentoring a Ukrainian startup that also was in, how to say, suffering from the war situation in Ukraine. And this is another program that I fully recommend, totally different from the United Nations programs, because this is a for-profit and how to say, a more business-oriented program, but really is something quite interesting. And the last one that I wanted to comment, yesterday I was invited to join as a board advisor for the Impact Travel Lab. This is an initiative that is managing from the Netherlands and is trying to identify a startup for investing in the travel tech field, which we all know that is a very how to say, is generating a lot of carbon emissions and polluting. So 3 startups that we have already in the portfolio, because we are enlarging our angel fund there. One is the first platform in Europe using trying to avoid short haul flights, and it's like a Skyscanner, but offering high speed train for short haul travels, which is a very unique and innovative way for reducing the use of short haul planes. And they are not so necessary and hopefully in the future will be the rule that we use more the train and less the plane. The second is I'm in love with this startup or this project, which is transforming the Cuban almendrones, the classic American cars, that they are very, very polluting, in the electrical cars, and financing the entrepreneurs in Cuba, which is not the easiest country for doing business or entrepreneurship, to transforming their cars for that purpose. And the last one is the one pioneering network of electric caravaning. So how to make tourism with caravan vehicles in Europe. but instead of the oil or the petrol models, using electrical ones. So this is our 3 samples of how to identify SDGs and sustainable startups that in one way or another they are also contributing to smart cities or smart rural locations. Regarding other things that I wanted to comment. For example, for anyone that is interested, I'm currently advising the Eastern Province region in the Saudi Arabia, and they have an international soft landing program for water tech, sustainable and new energy tech startups. So any startup that is targeting these fields, I think Saudi Arabia is one of the most interesting markets right now. The same for all the Gulf region, but in particular Saudi, I think is the market to be in the next 5 years. More locally, this week, by chance, we have the Green Cities trade show here in Malaga, and this is the main event regarding green cities and the smart cities in South Spain. And also for anyone interested, I would recommend to go for the Smart City Expo in Barcelona, which is one of the largest events for startups and innovation in the globally regarding the Smart City Expo. The main event is in Barcelona, but they have satellite events in America, Asia, Africa, and different places. The last 2 things that I want to comment, and I'm also involved with the World Economic Forum. I have been collaborating for this New York Climate Week, so it's a pleasure to contribute also from the World Business Angel Investment Forum point of view. And finally, as you know, Ingrid, I am also collaborating with the Andalusian government for putting in place a delegation of startup in the ClimateTech for COP28. So if any of the people that is listening us will be in Dubai in November for the COP28, I'm more than happy to invite the startups to pitch in the event that we will be running during that particular global event. That is more or less the old ways I have been involved with the Smart City, ClimateTech, different entrepreneurship. And from all this experience, at the end of the day, I have taken a couple of or 3 advices for the startups. The one thing that I wanted to comment and not miss the opportunity, because I love that topic, is using the new skills and new tools that they are coming up with the generative AI, no-code, automation, and remote work. I think that this is a new wave of a skill of the future that can be used not only for entrepreneurship, but also for generating new jobs, or even for digital inclusion, for closing the gap, especially in underrepresented or disadvantaged collective. Then they need these new digital skills for becoming more, digitally savvy to find jobs, or to start with a new entrepreneurial venture. But I wanted to comment also one project I am collaborating with the Oman government, and that is about SMEs digitalization with these kind of skills. So we are going to be running a bootcamp in Muscat in Oman, providing these new skills to managers and non-tech executives to be able to build new digital products like a landing page, websites, or mobile applications, marketing campaigns, automation, chatbots, and only in 1 week. And this could be totally applicable for NGOs, sustainability initiatives, empowering them to be independent and not dependent from external IT or teams or consultants, or even generating innovation internally within the public entities, NGOs, or private companies, and implementing new simple but effective digital solutions for launching new climate or sustainability solutions and initiatives. As I have been listening from the beginning, this very interesting symposium, and personally, I think that many times we focus on the type of the pyramid and the most advanced technologies, and we lose a little bit of targeting the base of the pyramid. We need to understand that many of us live in Europe or North America or in developed countries, but 99% of the world population doesn't know how to code. And in many places, how to say, the most deep tech or high technologies are useful, but they are not reachable for this kind of entrepreneurs or startup in many cases. And they can do a lot of things with more, how to say, the more technologies that maybe they are more targeting more the base and the democratization of the entrepreneurship in emerging markets. I don't know how we are on time, or I am the...
We're on time, and if you just want to share your vice president role in the Global Science, Technology, and Innovation Committee, where we've done great work also for smart cities and SDGs, to encourage others to maybe join us, that would be great.
Sure. You know, I'm the gentleman and elegant person, so I left my main, how to say, the role of then I have in World Business Essential for the last point. As you comment, I have been for a couple of years with you in the Science, Technology, Innovation Committee, and running or leading the SDG subcommittee. And by the way, I think that you are doing a great job motivating us in the smart cities and the SDG committees. We have been, you know, I have been personally involved in mapping the different technologies and the startups in the field of SDGs for solutions for smart cities and for the Science, Technology and Innovation Committee, and during the next Congress in South Africa in Durban in November, the World Congress of Angel Investors, and our, how to say, the result of the work that we have been doing in the committee for this year, at least some of them, they will be presented during this Congress. So I welcome and invite any person that is listening us, and obviously all the World Business Angel community, for joining the World Congress in Durban, in South Africa. And I think that will be a great opportunity. By the way, it's the first time that I think that we are going to do our World Congress outside Turkey. So it will be a new experience for all of us, and but I think that will be a successful experience, and will open also the opportunity for other cities worldwide that want to host or to invite to host the World Business Angel Investment Forum Congress.
Thank you. You took us on a global tour of all the events that are available for startups, and hopefully this serves as a call to action to be engaged in the net zero opportunity. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you as a keynote speaker. And now our last keynote of the day, a closing keynote from Bhuva Shakti. Welcome. Please allow me to briefly share a few bio highlights. Bhuva, in addition to being a valued WBAF USA board member, she has been instrumental in helping us with this symposium and with the demo and pitch event this afternoon, as well as securing a collaboration with Women in AI USA, and with Columbia Venture Communities Impact Program. She serves in numerous leadership roles. She currently is the Global Ethics and Culture Officer and the Regional Head of Americas for Women in AI. She's also a Senior Director at Capgemini, where she has managed diverse teams and launched several fintech transformation products in investment banking and compliance industry. As the Financial Inclusion Advisor at WalletMax, WUWA is committed to promoting positive planet impact and empowering the unbanked and underbanked, with emphasis on sustainable entrepreneurship and digital innovation. With an MBA from Columbia University, WUWA is an early-stage investor in social impact startups with a vision to accelerate economic freedom and growth while reducing inequalities. Thank you for joining us. It's a privilege to have you as a closing keynote for our symposium, and we're looking forward to your remarks.
Thanks, Ingrid. Thanks for this symposium and putting together pitch event this afternoon. And I represent Columbia Venture Community, Women in AI, and WBAF today. It's a strong partnership that we have that stands globally across borders. Our vision has so far helped a lot of women-led startups to grow their social impact and also helped with the economic inclusion along with angel investments between Columbia Women in AI and WBAF. And today I want to slightly focus on STEM entrepreneurship and why it is more important, especially as we sit here at Climate Week, New York. Right, over the past few days, we've been seeing so many activists, protesters. They're calling for so much emergency action because it's not something we want to plan for in the future, but it's something that's happening today, and we want to take action. And we've been at multiple events. We heard diverse solutions that have been put forward. And like we heard in the earlier keynote, it need not be a big bang, long-term solution, right? So we can take simple steps. For example, I'm also proud to report that Columbia Climate School, which is like the world's first of its kind, it's the official university partner along with United Nations. It's been pushing us to amplify real change this week, throughout the week, and throughout the year. And we know that many local communities, so we think it's global warming, but many local communities are also indirectly impacted due to global warming with no fault of their own. And we also heard a lot of solutions this week that can eliminate some of the direct threat to our collective food security. And in all this crisis, we see that women are disproportionately affected because we need real leadership that can give an inclusive voice to everyone, not just few people that are not considering the diverse population. In terms of climate urgency, recently we saw World Health Organization issued urgent action. So why is a health organization issuing urgent action on climate change? It is because due to climate crisis, we've had a lot of health challenges for everyday people. So that has a potential to go into a pandemic like the one we just had, and we are still trying to come out. We also know that climate crisis is impacting several health systems today, and it's not something we want to plan for in the future. So we've seen a lot of outbreaks, new types of diseases because of off-cycle tropical storms that are created by climate crisis. And this is now overwhelming our health workforce and the infrastructure that we have that's not quite smart enough. And that's what we want to address as part of today's symposium, supporting startups in the space and also helping with private and public partnerships. So we do see a very critical interplay between environmental stability and human well-being. So it's as simple as you have cleaner air, better health, cleaner water, better food systems. So they are very much highly correlated. And earlier in the call today, we heard about COP28. So it's happening in November this year. It's an annual global climate conference that brings all countries to be accountable for each other. We also have a separate health day. So it's dedicated to finding proactive solutions for health challenges because of climate crisis. Some of our key priorities include how do we reduce carbon emissions? How can we build environmentally sustainable health systems that run on renewable energy but also prioritize mental health for local communities. So if we are able to collectively realize that the health crisis and the climate crisis go together, they are beyond borders, right? So a health or a climate crisis in one region affects other regions and sometimes globally. We've seen that repeatedly. So we want startups or entrepreneurs who develop solutions that can be community-based, but can also easily scale globally. Low cost, low effort, but scale with a larger impact. In terms of food, it's a similar situation where it's critical to expand collaboration for the entire food value chain. So we've heard about food security, food shortage, food issues, food prices going up, and so on and so forth. But we are also not focusing a lot on regenerative agriculture. So regenerative agriculture is a place where you can still produce the food that you need, but also you can restore the land at the same time and also capture carbon, right? So that's like a 3-in-1 benefit where you can strengthen food security, farming, but also prevent agricultural land degradation. So we've seen increasing temperatures, extreme weather events, droughts, floods. These have threatened production yields. So crops are changing the yield, changing the quality of the yield across geographies, and it's become a ripple effect. Even in the past couple of years, we are seeing constantly short-term supply issues, or we've seen price volatility. So it's not climate crisis, but it impacts our food, health, and in turn, our entire economy. So a shift in yield indicates a shift in price. Consumers cannot afford and impact to the global supply chain. On top of all this, when we don't address regeneration in agriculture, we also emit more greenhouse gas, which is again detrimental to our environment and our health. So what we are looking for today is also to increase financial investments, right? So if you are an entrepreneur or a startup, if you get the right opportunity and the right investment, then you are able to promote more regenerative agriculture. That in turn improves soil health or water retention. It enhances biodiversity. Over time, you get consistent crop yields, and also it becomes more cost effective and profitable for that community, and you can scale these things easily. So we've seen a lot of positive steps being taken by innovative startups that improve health and food, which are two key pillars for building smart cities. The third key aspect to a livable smart city I want to emphasize is the economics of infrastructure, right? So a smart city by default should improve quality of life, at least by 20 to 30% in the near term, let's say in 5 years to 7 years, 2030 being our goal for net zero. So we need to create more room for public partnerships and private sector acceleration. And today is very relevant that we are meeting so many innovative clean tech startups, and hopefully they get some funding to enhance some of their solutions. Ideally, in terms of infrastructure, what we want to promote is, it's not about rebuilding or upgrading the existing physical infrastructure, but also how we can invest in new physical infrastructure that can use smart technologies, that can have real-time data analytics, that can measure quality of life and improve those metrics over time, including generating green jobs or promoting a connected environment, a safe environment, and so on. So in the earlier days, we saw infrastructure investments, they were more capital intensive, which means it takes longer to operationalize. So for us to start a project, continue a project, finish, maintain. But these days, we see a lot of new construction and smart building solutions. We are able to dynamically respond to demand. So we don't have to wait for the government or large corporations to give us everything and continue to wait for years. For example, instead of expecting all clean transport from the government, which could take years, we can rely on private sector. So the private sector can have a partnership, can roll out and finance faster green fleets in each community. So that way we are impacting a small change, but quick change. And also we can also invest in a lot of sensors or IoTs, Internet of Things. Hopefully we'll see some today. But also we should ensure data privacy and device security. So if you're going to implement all this, people should feel safe that their data is secure and also the device is safe. But these kind of sensors can automatically assess energy needs and they can adjust smartly, right? So how much energy you may need, switch off when you don't need, and switch to renewable energy as needed, and so on and so forth. Similarly, they can smartly assess water needs, waste elimination, or even accessibility solutions for housing. Right? How can we help people with mobility issues with better housing and better commute times? All we are trying to target is not 100% perfect smart city, but ideally some of the solutions hopefully we see today should be able to, let's say, reduce healthcare challenges, let's say by a 10 to 15%, or save tons of water, or make a community crime-free, or maybe reduce crime. A particular smart city in a local community could also help us with faster emergency response times and save millions of lives. So it's more about smart cities with digital intelligence that we can implement in the existing urban systems. We don't have to build brand new cities and build brand new infrastructure. How can we bring small changes in existing infrastructure that can add little changes to the quality of life metrics? In closing, I want to also emphasize that some of the smart city solutions also ask us to do more with less, and that's good for our financial ecosystem as well, good for the economy, while also we are restoring and repairing our planet. I know we have a net zero transition goal set up for 2030. What I would recommend in closing is go with science-based targets, so that way you are able to easily measure and develop decarbonization pathways, so we can track and improve over time, right? So we should gradually move towards carbon capture than trying to emit more. But there are also scenarios where some of these emissions cannot be reduced. We cannot aim for 100% carbon-free environment. In those scenarios, we have a lot of startups that are also investing in storing the captured carbon away from human impact, right? So hopefully some of those startups will lead the way. In some simple steps that each business and individuals can adopt is go through the net zero goals, find out what you can do, not necessarily try to do everything, incorporate into their business planning, into their core values, do a top-down implementation from a C-suite organization to the employees, but also try to install technologies, build systems that can predict climate risks and market shifts in real time, right? So our goal is to not go 100% sustainable, lose revenue, and not the other way where we make revenue but lose our planet. So where we can synergize both sustainable goals and revenue should be the target, if you are able to follow some of these matrices. And additionally, in terms of energy security, we all know renewable energy, clean energy, green energy is good, but then a lot of people, ordinary people, still have financial barriers. So this is where some of the public-private partnerships and financing may help local communities to transition to, let's say, solar power, wind power, hydropower, whatever that is convenient in that particular geography. We can start by investing in sensors, again, ensuring privacy and security to track emissions across the entire supply chain. So you may not be able to track your supply chain issues, like say 10 levels down, but start with level 1 and 2, your direct supply chain impact and your indirect. And also, lastly, coming from a risk management and regulatory compliance background, I want to also strongly advise some of the startups and also businesses that are in the industry for clean tech to stay on top of sustainability regulations, avoid greenwashing, because making exaggerated claims, will ban you from being a credible company over time if you are audited. So losing customer trust and the community trust is not going to end well for you to continue to generate revenue. So I want to emphasize that. And to achieve all this, we want to also have a trained, skilled workforce, right? So we have a lot of new jobs that are green jobs that are required for our workforce to learn and also implement some of the large-scale sustainable transformation. So I'll end with that, but I hope to see a lot of startups today that can help us implement some of these at a small scale and take us forward on this climate journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful keynote. And we're looking forward to having, like you said, all the startups and scale-ups join us this afternoon. It's a separate event, Bright Link. In closing, I just would like to thank WBAF one more time for offering us the opportunity to organize this symposium. Also our partner, Women in AI, as well as Columbia Venture Impact Program. And please join us on the separate event Bright Link if you want to participate in the demo and pitch competition. Thank you. This concludes our symposium.